Okay, excellent. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 20th, 2025 Litchfield School Board meeting. We actually have a public hearing to begin with tonight. The time is now 5:05. We're running just a couple of moments late. We're going to call the public hearing and meeting to order, and we're going to start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have one board member who is on her way. Mrs. Ames will be here in just a few moments, but we will go ahead and get started because we do have a quorum present. Tonight, 5 o'clock, we are starting with the public hearing. So just to get things kicked off, under RSA 198-20C, the Litchfield School Board will meet today at 5 p.m. At the Town Hall to discuss the consideration of withdrawal and expenditure of funds from the Litchfield School District Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund for the procurement of pre-construction services and a construction manager for potential renovations in the Litchfield School District in the amount not to exceed $225,000. And the Litchfield School Board is certainly seeking public input prior to rendering a decision this evening. That being said, just a summary of withdrawals and motions that the board made on August 6th, and then we'll open it up for public comment. On August 6th, 2025, Mr. Cutter moved to have tonight's hearing for the amount up to $225,000 for Harriman and a construction manager. Mr. DeWitt seconded that motion, and that motion passed 4-0. And then the Litchfield School District established the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund in 2020 for the purpose of funding the study, planning, and cost of a new construction or renovation of existing facilities in the Litchfield School District as recommended by the Capital Planning Committee, right? So this is a specific expendable trust fund with funds in that fund specifically for said purpose. With that being said, I would like to open up the floor and encourage public comment this evening. As you come up, please just state your name and address.
Kathleen Follett, 8 Mike Lane. So this is just to bring in a project manager to look at and decide whether to do a renovation, an addition, or a whole new building. Is that what this is?
This is a project manager and a construction manager, right? So this is the firm and a construction manager to bring us to a plan that we can present to voters in March of 2026. That plan will allow us to present to the taxpayers either renovation and new construction, some type of modification to Griffin Memorial to address the building infrastructure needs.
How is this different from what Barker did last year, or whenever it was that Barker did it?
Barker presented a new construction build. This is not a new construction build.
So this is just renovation and or addition.
This is a renovation and or addition as per the RFP.
Okay. And is this going to, they're going to create a list of top priorities with cost that we start at number 1 and start checking it off? Or is this their suggestion of you should do a renovation versus a new building?
Mr. DeWitt, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the RFP requested from the firms a plan on how to either look at a renovation and addition based upon what the FIC over the last Facilities Improvement Committee for the from the last year came up with in terms of our list of needs, requirements, what are the top priorities going from physical and including the educational needs as stated by the school staff. And then comparing, do we want to look at a renovation and addition or a redistribution throughout the district? Now, in that redistribution throughout the district is going to compare needs of cost and educational against a renovation with addition.
Okay. And I ask this because we've been on this kind of carousel for 25 years now. The same discussion happens. Should we renovate? Should we build? should we add on? Is the land going to hold it? Can the roof hold the updated structures? Transparency, enrollment, all of that comes up it's the continuous cycle, right? So we've put a lot of money into whether it's architectures, building site, planning, all of that over the years. We probably could have purchased a new building by this time with the amount of planning monies or close to it at this point. And when they come in, if they do suggest renovations, will they also give us a timeline of how we should maintain those renovations so that they can stay in the best building status as opposed to decomposing the way that our current buildings are?
So I don't think that's going to be a part of their plan. I know that is a plan that Brian and his team Mr. O'Connell and his team have already started, and we've been discussing within the FIC is looking at, I think you went out 20 years looking
Yeah, so
at.
we went out about 30. So we had the on-site insight reports last year. We have that for GMS, but it's obviously based upon the current building as it is, right? So we would need to, let's play this out. You know, we go forward with a renovation project of some capacity, right? And we have new or redesigned or repurposed stuff in it, right? Say it's a new roof, a new HVAC system, whatever. We would work possibly with Harriman. I'm sure they would do some of the work with us, or the pre-construction firm we're going to hopefully sign a contract with eventually, that when the project is completion, okay, what's the life expectancy of the things that we have here? So we can add that to our capital improvement plan. So let's take roof, for example. Roof's got about 25 to 30 year life expectancy. We can say, all right, the roof got completed, say in 2028, for argument's sake. That's when it's like done, warranty has begun on it, right? What's 25 years off to that? Let's put that on our capital improvement plan. This is when the roof would need to be replaced. Let's backtrack from there. These are the different things to maintain the roof so we do get the true life expectancy out of the roof and get it to about 25, 30 years of life and stuff like that. Campbell's done a nice job of that. That roof's in pretty good shape. It's in year 25. You know, we had last year in the budget process, we talked about putting money in one of our capital reserves with the target of year 30 of that roof, possibly being able to withdraw and then replace the roof and the other associated things with it. And because that roof has been able to be maintained, we're on the right timeline to do that. So when we can establish GMS kind of fresh, we'll reestablish all of those markers for the building, for the different components of it that get replaced and stuff like that. We have it for all the current stuff, but if we're going forward with the renovation, we would imagine some of that stuff is going to start over, right? That we would need to kind of replace those things on that new timeline for them.
And what about the stuff that was supposed to already be replaced but hasn't been replaced? Because, again, our school board's back to, I know you remember Jason Garrett, was big on we should have a capital plan with a rotation of updating things.
Yeah.
Has that happened?
Yeah, we've started the capital plan. You're going to see it tomorrow morning as part of when I talk to all of you about it and stuff like that. You'll see it built around LMS and CHS currently. We have all the information for GMS. And if we were not going to move forward, like I have it all in the document, but it's just going to be, it could potentially be irrelevant if we were to move forward with a renovation project, right? Now, there are some immediate things that we've obviously been fixing at GMS as they've come up, right? Like there's the thingy on the, I don't remember, what's the thing? On the side of the roof there.
You know,
the soffit repair.
Yeah, soffit repair. That's got to get done, right? Like one of the air conditioning units, you know, failed on us at the tail end of the school year, right? And like the plumbing issue that came up. So we're like doing those as we are, but we're trying to get to that. Like, here's the plan. We're gonna go make sure our reserve funds are up to speed, or there's in the budget, depending on what the particular replacement or repair needs to be. And it's just a system we can roll over and over, and it's clear and it's transparent. This is what we're going to do in the year that we're going to do it.
So more for the school board, and we were supposed to have a plan like that in place previous to this, right? But we haven't done a lot of repairing at Griffin so that things weren't collapsing. How do we make sure that things are being upgraded and repaired and maintained the way that they need to be so that we don't end up with a large failure that is unexpected from not being contained? And I guess a follow-up question to that is our maintenance budget being, and I don't know if you can answer that because this is a public hearing, so that might be a separate issue, but I know we had a lot of end-of-year funds. Is our maintenance budget being spent down so that we're optimizing and using it and replacing things as we should be, or are we pocketing it on the side and then it ends up being an end of year balance that then we kind of dole out at the end?
So our maintenance fund, we have a separate building and maintenance fund account as well, and the voters approved putting money into that account at town meeting, and so
That's the capital reserve one.
there's multiple reserve accounts.
Yeah.
There's a building and maintenance specific account, not the account that we're talking about tonight. The account we're talking about tonight is a specific capital improvement expendable trust fund, not the building and maintenance fund.
Okay.
Two separate funds.
So my question was more our yearly budget.
Yep.
Are we using that efficiently to try to offset things collapsing so that we don't have to hit into the capital reserve?
Yes, and so the actual maintenance lines are being used sufficiently. I think where we're seeing excess funds right now is more in the salary and benefits lines across para positions and other positions that are in the budget, and that's where you're seeing the board taking action for encumbrances at end of year and things like that. It's not. It's others.
And to just follow up a little more, if you don't mind, just to kind of expand upon that, talk about budgeting and stuff like that. We're now in the year 2 and can get more in the detail in the budget to match up, like instead of just general dollar amounts in for maintenance, say that this is the dollar amount for this thing, right? And that's the idea of that capital improvement plan, is that like, all right, in 2026, capital improvement plan says replace a boiler, right? In the budget for that proposed year, I mean, I guess this year is 2026, but like in the future, right? You'll see in the budget, boiler, X amount of money, like instead of a general dollar amount for repairs and maintenance at GMS. That's what we're trying to shift to. Now you're going to have some money that is generalized because there's going to be unexpected things that occur, right? So you do need some money for general repairs. Some of them are minor, some of them are major that come up for the case. But in our budget, we want to have greater detail to specify specifically the repairs. And it's a learning curve. We transitioned in last year. We're trying to get everything squared away and using, the budget that we didn't develop last year. And then we have this one, but we still didn't know what we're doing. This budget's going to be even better and stuff like that with the specifics. And then taking that capital improvement plan. So it just becomes clockwork, right? Like, this is what the plan says. This is what the repair says. The plan is based upon an expert who has come in and said this was the life expectancy of this equipment piece or whatever the case may be, or this repair is timely in this time. So it's just like very, I don't want to say simple because it's not, but it is, right? Like you're just following your plan as it kind of goes out. And that's our long-term goal. Still a work in progress. And GMS is tough. With LMS, they finished that renovation project, the project that they did right at LMS. So we have all those timelines and can do the markers out from it because it just got completed like a year or two ago, right? CHS, we know when it was built and we know where all the repairs are, so we can it was easier to kind of project that. GMS is such a kind of a cluster right now. It's built in sections and it's been kind of Frankenstein's. Like when you go in and look at the boiler system, you can tell just pieces were added on or put in when this renovation happened. So it's tough to designate all right, this piece is not out yet, but this piece is, but do we replace the whole thing? Trying to kind of do that out. So, in a perfect world, we'll get some sort of project passed and can establish all those markers. But right now we are kind of chasing our tail with GMS, where we're reacting and not being proactive with everything kind of associated with it, where we would love to be more proactive with it.
And just to expand on that, right, in order to replace some of the aging infrastructure at GMS, we've got to pull out some of the newer pieces to get access to the older pieces to that, so it's like this never ending cycle. Yeah. Specifically speaking about the water heaters and boilers, right, to access some of the older ones, I've got to pull out the newer ones to get access to the ones behind it.
Right.
So it's just, economies of scale here and efficiencies about what you tackle and when.
All right. So bottom line is, if you pull out this money, you're going to have a construction manager, and whatever the other one was, and to make out a plan of renovation versus new school, right? No,
So
renovation
we pass-
versus
New school is
addition.
not on the table.
Addition, new building.
Yeah.
No, addition. And which one would be more cost effective? And then what would be tied to each of them,
Correct.
essentially?
We've also identified what we think. We have a whole list of priorities of things that we would like to achieve, right? And they're going to come in and they're going to say, all right, to achieve all of those things, it would look like this. But they're also going to help us look at what that cost would be and help us decide where, if we have to cut certain things, where do we cut, are those things that they leave room for expansion in the future if we were to need to do that, or, it's going to be a sort of balancing act of like looking at what we need, and they're going to help us do all of that.
And
So-
they're gonna,
Oh,
sorry, and they're gonna look at, say, if they come back and they say, all the overhead units on the roof need to be replaced, but they're gonna take into thought that the roof is old and that it can hold the new ones, and that we have to
Yes.
tie that
Yes.
price in so that we don't
Right.
turn around and, okay.
Right.
I'd be deeply concerned if they walked on the roof and said, we'll replace the rooftop units and not the roof.
I think
I'd
it's
be
more
deeply-
likely they say the roof is no good, and while you have the roof off, replace the HVAC.
Based at looking at the number of leaks we have, I would say the roof should be a priority, because how do you protect anything inside if it's constantly leaking?
The other mindful thing when talking to Harriman and the construction manager in this whole process is you're in that building teaching while this is happening, right? And so not for nothing, their plan has to take that into consideration about how they do this in an appropriate manner while education's happening at the same time. Right? So that is top of mind for the board.
That's one of the reasons we like this firm, is that they were very open about the communication with all stakeholders, not just like a small team from the district, but coming into the building, talking to the teachers, talking to the community members, holding different forums and those type of things to really understand the needs, right? Like not just the wants, but what are the real needs here in this situation, so we can kind of piece it together. You had a question earlier about like prioritizing and stuff like that. So that FIC, that Facilities Improvement Committees, created a document that did prioritize that. And a lot of that is from Dan, right? Like Dan took the feedback from the staff and put those things on. There's operational stuff obviously on there, like, hey, the HVAC system needs to be looked at, right? There's also the educational components too, and like putting a value system on this. And we put a lot of different educational things on, like centralization of services, right? Like that's big keys, and I think that would help the school a lot, right? And that's one of the priorities on there. And so we can kind of go back and forth with the firm, because they're going to come back with an initial like ideas for everything, and it's going to have an initial cost for it, and we're going to see that number. Maybe we love that number, or maybe it's like, look, we don't think that number can pass with the voters. So let's look at our priority list. This is an have to. What does it look like though if we take this one off? And that's where like that dialogue is going to come back and forth of being able to prioritize, talking to all of our stakeholders and figuring out what the most important things are, and that, it's going to be a lot of work, but hopefully it gets to a project that everyone can support or feel informed about and can make an informed decision at the ballot and stuff. And ultimately, obviously, we'd like it supported in the end, but at least people feel good about the process and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Open it up for more questions, please, and comments.
Just one.
It's a lot of audience members. Now's your chance.
Right? Big crowd here today.
Yeah. I'll open it up one more time. Okay. I'm going to close comment, and at this point we'll close the public hearing, and the board will move forward with our regularly scheduled board meeting.
Do we need to prove the
You approve
expenditure?
the motion.
Yep. And so we're going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Shoemaker,
Second.
second by Ms. Ames. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And that carries 5-0. Excellent. We've already done the pledge. And so we'll move right into the public session. And we have review and revision of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda from any board members?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I think it would be prudent. I know we have a second policy read for the cell phone policy later in the meeting. I think it would make sense to either add a discussion about that prior to the first public comments section of the meeting, or I don't know if it makes sense to move the whole second read up for that.
Okay. Can we add cell phone policy or cell phone discussion underneath superintendent report?
Yes.
Do we need to motion the $225,000 expenditure?
We already did that.
Yeah, we did that.
You don't have to do it as part of after the public hearing?
I think now that you've had the public hearing and you heard the public input, you have to have a motion to do the withdrawal, because you had the last
Oh
meeting
yeah, the last motion
was to have
a
this
hearing.
public meeting to discuss it and allow the public to comment on it. So now I think the board needs to have a motion, if you want, it's your decision, but to move forward with as stated, the amount up to $225 for this purpose.
All right.
I will make
Okay. Please, go ahead.
I will make a motion to withdraw up to $225,000 from the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund for the purposes of contracting with Harriman and putting out an RFP and hiring a construction manager.
You may want to amend that motion to just match the language in here, because God forbid something fell apart with Harriman. We're now tethered to that.
The language in here states Harriman.
Funding the study, planning, and cost of new construction of renovation.
I would use the public, I think you're saying use the public hearing language, yes.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, you read the first bullet point.
Yes, I read the bullet point in the agenda.
Second bullet point.
I will amend my motion to include the language of withdrawing an amount of $225,000 from the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund for the purpose of funding the study, planning, and cost of new construction or renovation of existing facilities in the Litchfield School District as recommended by the Capital Planning Committee.
I will second that motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. DeWitt, second by Mr. Shoemaker. Additional discussion on the withdrawal? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 5-0. Thank you for that. All right, moving into consent agenda. Any board members like to move anything off consent tonight? Hearing and seeing none, we have summary of non-public actions from August 6, 2025. Mr. Shoemaker motion to approve the July 9th, 2025 non-public minutes. Mr. DeWitt seconded that motion. That motion passed 4-0. The following summer hire was presented. Emily Dawson, CHS music teacher. Mr. Shoemaker motion to approve the resignation of Nathan Lammy as CHS music teacher. Mr. Plansky seconded that motion. That motion passed 4-0. Mr. Shoemaker motion to approve the resignation of Chris Jamarog as the Director of Technology. Mr. Plansky seconded that motion. That motion passed 4-0. Mr. Shoemaker motioned to adjourn the non-public session at 8:50 p.m. and Mr. DeWitt seconded that motion. That motion passed 4-0. We do not have any presentations and recognitions. Is that correct? Nope. Okay. No student rep report this evening, and we'll open it up to our first community comment on agenda items this evening. You can speak on cell phones if you like.
Do I have to say my name again? Kathleen Falls, Mike Lane. I did see on Facebook the concerns over bullying. If you look up bullying on the town page, you'll see a long thread of discussion on it. So just to enlighten any of you that haven't seen it, you might want to go back and read through it. As far as the bullying policy, as far as the cell phone policy, I obviously support you guys because it's law, so it's something you have to do. I would throw out there, many of us or some of us from the district over the summer read the book, The Anxious Generation. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it talks about the effects of cell phones. And one of the main, there's 4 recommendations, and one of it is that there's no cell phones in school. They have research that shows there is a direct link to the booming of cell phones and smartphones specifically to anxiety and depression and the spikes that we're seeing in children. The constant access, it's always on their mind. And so they are focused on, am I getting a text? Am I getting an Instagram? Should I, update my Snapchat and whatever else? And so they're not focused on learning because they're always preoccupied by that phone. It was a little mind blowing, honestly, reading some of the things and having seen the kids being in the district for the last 16 years and some of the changes in the kids, and then reading it in this book and how they've seen it, how they've documented it over the years. And there's other pieces that come into it, but one of them is get the cell phones out of school. And then there's some other recommendations like with parents and things like that. So I support you guys in doing that. I know there's a ton of pushback and worry. Obviously, there are some other concerns that need to be addressed in order to have parents feel a little bit more comfortable about it. But I think we really need to look at some of that research and see what is it that's happening to our kids. And it's not just the cell phones, it's how much digital content they have, it's how much access they have, it's the fact that they're constantly looking at a screen, even their Chromebooks. And so they're not having those conversations with their peer beside them because they're busy looking up information on a computer. So we're losing those social skills, we're losing those motor skills, we're losing all of that, and we're losing the coping skills because a computer can just direct us what to do instead of getting it wrong and figuring out to try again. And so all of that is playing into it. So just if you have one anxious generation, it was a pretty good read, recommended by Amy and Karen in the district.
I just want to clarify. So Litchfield What's Up is not an official way of communicating with us. Just for everyone's benefit though, you know, we are obviously human. We do see some stuff on social media, but you know, we have a school board email that comes to all of us. So if you ever need to get in touch with us, by all means, like reach out to us directly. Please don't think we'll see a Facebook post in Litchfield What's Up.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I just wanted to follow up with Mrs. Follis.
Name and address for
Sorry, Amy Gaspar. I live at One Evergreen Circle and also at Campbell High School. First of all, I'm pretty thrilled about the cell phone policy, aside from like some of the issues that I just heard, and I'm so sorry. That breaks my heart. But just to follow up and to emphasize, I've actually started taking data on, or I would say over the last 10 years, we've seen a dramatic drop in the level of skills, just baseline skills. And even in my own classroom, I've had to truly minimize the amount of work I can get through because I have to. It's just a lot more. I just have to do a lot more hand holding, and I attribute a lot of that to the constant technology use. I feel like in the district over the last several years, we've put a huge amount of emphasis on technology, as we should. I think it's very important. So I want to preface what I'm saying by I acknowledge the importance of technology. We need it. It's part of our world. But I feel like we've come so far to technology and focusing on it so much that a lot of the teachers don't feel like we can even trust the authenticity of work that's being done at home. And this is not a slight on the students at all. I get it. I remember being in high school and remember Cliff Notes. I do. So that was our way of getting it. But it's just so accessible now, and so. The phone thing, I think, has just exacerbated that issue. And to Mrs. Follis's point, I've also seen a dramatic decline, and I think COVID had something to do with it, but just in the lack of social skills, lack of eye contact and stuff like that. And as far as like the backpack thing, if I could just speak to that, we've been doing that for years, and it's just a constant fight, because they're not, the reality is that they're not going in their backpacks. They're just not. And, this is a law, obviously I'm pretty excited about. But I just feel like, I really cut down on cell phone use in my classroom last year because our policy was not spectacular, but it was a lot stricter than it has been. And I had more learning done last year and more, contribution than I've seen in years. And it's because they had to participate, and they had to do it because there were no phones in my classroom. So I just wanted to emphasize everything that Mrs. Follis had said, that as a teacher, it's just been an uphill battle. I guess the good news is that in terms of technology, they have their Chromebooks. We have landlines in every classroom. So aside from the obvious, medical situations and things like that, I'm so grateful. I said to Mr. O'Connell today, after it's been so exhausting to deal with these phones, and so I just wanted to put my 2 cents in as a teacher, like being on the ground, that this is going to be a very welcome change, and I know I speak for the majority of educators, at least at the high school, because it's just a fight. We're exhausted over fighting it, you know, so. And I think in terms of the learning, I think we're going to start seeing so many, you know, so much more progression, and that I'm excited for. So
Can you just share with us what you did last year that you felt like made an impact?
I laid the smack down. No, I'm just kidding. For any of you who know me, my classroom is very, very welcoming. But I think my students know, like, I just set the tone at the very start of the year. And they just know I don't get paid to police this. I just don't. I don't want to see them. If I do, you're just going to go down to the office, you know. I think the problem is that the poor students were like, there was miscommunication, because you'd walk into several classrooms and all the kids are on their phones in the middle of the class. So it was like pitting staff members against staff members. So I think what's great about the law is that we have to follow it, you know, and everyone has to follow it. So I just think my students knew, like, the minute they crossed my thresholds, that I don't want to see it, you know. And thankfully we have great kids. So thankfully they respected me enough that I had a couple of issues, but I could not believe how much more I could get done, because not only it was, you know, were they not distracted, but then it wasn't the constant, put your phone away, I don't want to see your phone, you know, so it was twofold. But it was amazing.
But by and large, it was you enforcing the policy.
Yes. And I tried to set the tone on day one, you know. So yeah.
Thank you.
But thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
That. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So as a parent who has had kids go through the district, Mrs. Gaspar is established. The students generally know of her when they come in. And so I think most are more willing to follow along. She's well liked up at the high school. When you don't have a consistent across the board policy, new teachers that aren't quite so sure or aren't as confident, let's face it, teenagers are skilled at finding the weak link, right? And so they find the weak link, they break it down, they transfer it down to the next link in the chain. And so when there's not a consistent policy, then that system starts to corrode. And then you start getting, well, that teacher lets us, so they're this teacher and that teacher doesn't. And it's not a good environment. And then that creates disruption among the kids, among the teachers, among the staff. It's an additional weight on the teachers. And I'm not up there enough that it really affects me. But I don't think it's fair to the teachers when it's up to them to have a different level of carryover. Like, it's great that she can, and you have the clout to do it, but we have a lot of new staff a lot of the time, and we got to give them the backing to make it consistent. So.
Thank you.
Bye.
Robin Corbeil for Nesmithport. I think I just want to follow up with, I think this law came about because there was a need, not just in Litchfield, not just in New Hampshire, but across the country, probably globally, to get the social media and the technology away from our kids. And I'm a technology teacher, so I love technology, but I do think that we've watched over the last 10 years and not been happy with what it's done for our children. So I don't think the law came out of nowhere. I think the law was researched by people who were invested, and it was probably a large group of people. So I think that it's important that we support that law. As educators, if we have to spend time policing cell phones, we're not spending time educating children. So locking them in a box may sound horrible, but it's done. So now our focus can be on 100% on educating those kids in the room, not walking around and making sure that there's not a cell phone or a watch or this or that, or policing that they're not, because in the middle school, they take them to the bathroom. So we get lots of requests. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom? So that they get a beep, they get it, and they can't, they're anxious. It's not good for them, right? So like, I got to see what happened. So they'll go into the bathroom and then they're looking. So all of that time is taking away from their education. So again, I think that this law didn't come about from nowhere. I think this law came about because it's what's good for kids. And so I, again, am in support, even though I am a technology teacher, and I think all that stuff is important, that there needs to be a space and time in their day that is focused on socializing without a cell phone and interacting with adults and their peers and making eye contact and all those really important things that we've seen go away. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, still in community comment. Anybody else like to speak at this point? All right, hearing none, we're going to close this round of community comment. There is a second opportunity a little bit later this evening, or 8 p.m., whichever one comes first in our agenda. So we'll move over into correspondence and shift it over to Vice Chair Ames.
We have about a month's worth. Because I was not at the last meeting, I will try to read it fast, but here's where we're at. On July 11th, Julie Darling emailed the board circulating the interview schedule and format for the 4 firms selected to interview. On July 15th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board requesting board members come in for signatures on the manifest, and there were responses from Dan DeWitt, myself, Andrew Cutter, Peter Plansky, and then Ann responded as well. On July 16th, Jan Sullivan emailed the board circulating public and non-public minutes from July 9th, from the July 9th board meeting. On July 17th, Julie Darling emailed the board providing updates on interviews and construction of the construction firms and circulating potential interview questions. On July 17th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the accounts payable manifest, which was both live checks and the EFT. And there were responses from Peter Plansky and then Ann Innamoratti. On July 18th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board advising that she had received the 3 signatures on the manifest. On July 18th, Andrew Cutter sent a text message to the board advising that there had been 3 signatures on the manifest. On July 23rd, Renee Burgess emailed the board circulating the August 1st calendar invite for interviews with 2 of the construction firms. On July 23rd, Renee Burgess emailed circulating the August 4th calendar invite for the 2 other firms to interview. On July 24th, Becky Dargy, the local coordinator from the EF exchange program, emailed the board introducing herself and asking questions about the policy for posting on district sites. On July 25th, Renee Burgess emailed the board circulating the full calendar and times for the interviews and construction firms. On July 28th, the superintendent text message to the board regarding a personnel update that was confidential, and there was a response from Peter Plansky. On July 29th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the EFT payroll manifest. On July 30th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the EFT and live check accounts payable manifests. On August 1st, Renee Burgess emailed the board circulating the August 6th draft agenda. On August 1st, Renee Burgess emailed the board circulating access to the folder with pre-construction bid materials from each firm. On August 4th, Ron Oblinus emailed the board requesting a change to the July 9th board meeting minutes regarding his comments, and there was a response from Mr. Cutter as well as Jan Sullivan. On August 6th, Ron Oblinus emailed the board circulating documents that he would be speaking to during community input that night and asked that they be included in the minutes. On August 6th, the superintendent emailed the board circulating feedback from the pre-construction meetings. On August 7th, Diane Plansky emailed the board offering to connect the district with a friend of hers who is a breeder who recently started a comfort dog donation program within schools. And there was a response from the superintendent. On August 9th, Jan Sullivan emailed the board circulating the draft August 6th, 2025 public and non-public minutes. On August 11th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the credit card manifest. On August 12th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the 403B manifest. On August 15th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the live checks and EFT accounts payable manifest. On August 15th, Ann Innamoratti emailed the board circulating the GMS and LMS electric bills for the year. 4 more, I promise. August 15th, Renee Burgess emailed the board circulating the draft August 20th board meeting agenda. On August 18th, Dan DeWitt emailed the board requesting guidance regarding posting on social media about school board business. On August 19th, Noah Benoit, CHS teacher, emailed the board with his support for the proposed cell phone policy that collects student phones for educational benefits, school culture, and safety reasons. And then on August 19th, Dan DeWitt emailed the board circulating the draft FIC governance documents ahead of the meeting, and there was a response by Renee Burgess. And that brings us up to date.
Take a drink.
Just a breath. Breath will do.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. That closes correspondence. We'll move it right over into general business and turn it over to the superintendent to kick things off.
Yep. So enrollment report, we've had some enrollments since we last meet. We had some enrollments, and so this is a summary of all of it as we approach school next Monday. We had a couple people reach out today, so this could change a little bit by the time Monday rolls around. We're finalizing whether they have the proper paperwork for housing and stuff like that. But this will roughly be about what we have for the start of school next week. Pre-K starts a week later. We may have some more there. We have a cap at 40 for pre-K, so we have a little room if some kids come our way once we get school going next week. So.
Okay, any questions on enrollment?
Short summer.
Short summer, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next, I just want to kind of put this on the board's radar. So we've been trying to kind of make sure we're doing right. And I actually think when I put this on last week, we were still working on it. So I feel in a much better place, but I still want to talk about it with the board. So we have employees. This could be, a coach, it could be one of our own employees. It could be anyone who wants to use our school facilities for, when I say private use, it could be like, for example, run a basketball camp, right? Like our basketball coach may host a basketball camp, open it up for participation from not just Litchfield, but from other local groups. And how do we go about that? So our policy and use of facilities, it's actually not great about this specific subject. So I just want to talk about it with the board a little bit. I think we're pro our employees being able to offer these opportunities, especially when it's going to benefit our students and staff, right? And that's like the name of the game. But we don't want to necessarily, as a school district, take the liability and manage these type of situations when they kind of arise. So, if we have a camp running, like we use this basketball camp because this is kind of where it stemmed from this summer. Our basketball coach reached out about a camp and he's new to the whole process, and working with Tony, we had some questions arise about pay and how to funnel it, and does he want it funneled through our student activity account, all these other things, right? And then just got our gears going about kind of all of it. Is we feel like we should have to have people sign off they're not holding us liable in these situations, whether it's a camp or whatever. And just a little background, my dad used to be a coach. He would run basketball camps in the summer, and he would either himself or he worked for people who were LLCs, right? Like the camp itself was an LLC, but I don't think that's universal for everybody who does that across the board. So I just want to kind of put that in, that we're working on that, and I think that's what we're going to require our employees to do, even though that's not explicitly said in the policy. And I also think it's proper that if it's something that's going to benefit our kids and staff, that we kind of waive the fee, because if you look at we have the flexibility in the policy to waive fees in these type of situations, but we want to be honest that our people are going to profit on this individually, right? And that money's not coming to the school at all, even though they're using our facility. Does the board have thoughts on all of that? No, it's a lot, but I'd rather get ahead of it now.
We had talked about it briefly when we had a policy meeting, and the thought was it was appropriate discussion for the board to have regarding use issues. The biggest concern that comes to mind is liability. I mean, that's just ultimately, I don't think the district is looking to make money off of any of the activities that our staff or employees are running. I think it's just a matter of making sure that liability is clear in terms of if there's an injury or if there's a trip and fall or if there's something that happens that somebody becomes litigious, and we all know that there are litigious people out there, that the district is protected.
Yeah. And the basketball camp was kind of the interesting test case for it because, new guy, he's trying to do the right things. He obviously wants to pay himself and his staff for the time and the effort, and he's looking to give money back to us. So he's like, why don't you just take all the money and pay me out of it? And no, we don't. Once we take ownership of if you want to donate it after the fact to your basketball program, that's one thing. But like once we absorb the money, we're now on the hook for this, right? So like we don't want to process it through that way and stuff like that. But those are things that happen normally, right? Like having a camp, doing those type of things. So we want to encourage those opportunities. and not limit ourselves. But it is just a little dicey that I just want to make the board aware. Not dicey, but just that we got to kind of work through some details of
So
this.
just in terms of liability, how does that work with Primex?
So typically, I can speak from a PTO standpoint.
Yep.
We had to have our own insurance policy, and we had to, in order to use school facilities for any of our events, had to provide at the beginning of the year
Makes sense.
a copy of our insurance so that they knew, and then we could book our rooms for the rest of the year. I don't know how it works with other people.
And I think that's where a little like dicey. If it's like the dance recital we had, like we require them to give us their insurance for it. If it's a random group that's just going to use our building for monthly meetings, right? Like we don't go through the whole rigmarole to get liability out of that, right? It could be PTO is a very organized group, and with some of the donation stuff, but this. Other groups may not have that same level, and we can start requiring that of people, but I think we're going to run into issues that might hinder some of our ability to offer some things. So I want to try and find the middle ground while also protecting kind of the district of it
I
all.
think a waiver policy
Could you do it
makes
as a
the
waiver?
most sense
Yeah.
to protect our liability from there. And then again, there can also be as an added protection for certain organizations. I don't know what those would be, but some sort of insurance.
So if we were to work on something and then maybe bring that to the board, next meeting, I don't think this is policy per se. I wouldn't advocate adding it to the facility use policy, but if we had a set of internal procedures that Primex had looked at and said this covers you, would that be something that?
Yeah, I would be interested to understand how other districts do this.
Yeah.
Right. There's got to be some benchmarks out there, I would think.
Yeah, I mean it's
And I don't want to be restrictive
Yeah.
to have the community use our buildings either. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's intended for.
right. That's exactly right. We don't want to box ourselves into a corner where we outthought ourselves on this matter and stuff like that for some logical stuff and everything like that. So we can look around a little bit. I don't recall running into this issue in my previous district, but I also don't know if we were like asking the right questions always. So like that may be part of it, because most of the things there were like pretty long standing. So
Well, and a lot of times things like this don't come to light until a
There is an
specific
issue.
situation
Yeah, right.
arises. Someone
breaks
asks,
it up.
"Hey, what's your policy on this?"
Yeah.
And we go, we need to
Yeah.
revisit that.
Yeah. So that's something that we want to work with. So if the
This
board's
scenario
okay with it, if we could work on some sort of like waiver, go that through in Primex and then maybe present that to the board. So you're aware as well, and then we're comfortable with that.
Yeah. And having kind of gone through Primex before years ago, right? Primex can be pretty restrictive. So
Yeah.
I would just caution you on that.
We will. We learned that in something Julie's going to talk about.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Next thing is just a donation. We have to report out on donations when we receive them. So we recently received a very generous donation from the Karen M. Morin Living Revocable Trust for the purpose of supporting our teachers at GMS. So we received that donation last week. We have to report that to the board, so we're reporting that and just want to say thank you for that. I don't know if Dan wants to add anything, putting him on the spot, but yeah. So we thank for that support and the support. Yeah.
Certainly on behalf of the board, thank you for the donation. I know our teachers, our staff, our district are very grateful for those types of donations to be made.
So reporting out on that, and then you wanted to add cell phone discussion right now, so that's
Yes.
where we're at. So
All right. Mr. Shoemaker, you're up.
So obviously there's been a decent amount of public interest in this, as we saw with comments. I mean, obviously we know that the law is enacted, and the law states that we have to have a policy in place that will prevent the use of cell phones and communication devices from bell to bell. I guess my concern that I wanted to bring to the board is that the law also has a component of it that states that our policy should be created in collaboration with parents and teachers. I think obviously we have had collaboration with teachers, whether through the administration or not. But my concern is that I don't know that we've had communication with parents. And so if we are trying to comply with the law, I do think that that's something that we should be taking into consideration.
I know you and I had spoken about where in the law, what is the law reference? You were kind of looking that up.
Yeah. So I don't, do you have it saved? Basically it
I can
says
find it.
And that's not in the policy, right?
That's not in
it's
the
it's in
policy.
text of
So
But that's not in the that's not even referenced in the school board association policy.
right. So like our proposed policy is literally the school board association policy, right?
Which you would think
Um,
follows the law.
You
So
would hope it would follow the law.
It says
yes.
school boards and boards of trustees of chartered public schools shall develop and adopt a policy governing the use of student cell phones and other personal electronic communication devices in schools. Such policy shall prohibit all personal communication device use by students from when the first bell rings to start instructional time until the dismissal bell rings to end the academic school day, with approved exceptions determined by the superintendent or their designee with respect to student medical disability or language proficiency need. Such policy shall be developed in collaboration with school parents and teachers and shall be reviewed annually.
Okay.
I can continue with the rest of the.
Thank you.
So my concern is, I guess, first and foremost, I am wholeheartedly in agreement that cell phones should not be a distraction in the classroom, and that's problematic if that's the case. I think that and I said that Facebook is not the way to communicate with us. However, I did read every comment on the post that was posted about this because I did want to have a feel for what the community was thinking about that. And it seemed to be, there were arguments on both sides, pretty passionate arguments on both sides. So I think at a minimum, we do need to facilitate a conversation with parents to get feedback at large. Candidly, I think there's been multiple comments made, and one of my concerns is about enforcement of policies. One of my concerns was that it sounded like the sort of consequences for breaking those rules were sort of insignificant. I do understand that, apparently detention doesn't matter to people anymore. I was afraid to get detention when I was in high school, but apparently that's not a thing anymore. But nonetheless, I'm concerned about uniform enforcement of policies too. So I do think we need to have more of a conversation around this before we implement or finalize a policy.
I do know Manchester is holding a public forum, I believe tonight, actually, on their cell phone policy in order to allow people in their city or parents to weigh in. My understanding, it has been part of your superintendent messaging that has been sent to families, at least that it's a discussion.
I've talked about cell phones,
And I think it's
right?
been in the principals' communications
in
that have
handbooks.
come out so far, and it was part of our handbook discussion.
Right.
So I certainly would not say that there hasn't been some type of notice. I think a lot of people know what's going on, and have had, in my opinion, the opportunity to email and weigh in. That being said, when there are large issues like this that are somewhat divisive, I do think it could be a good idea to have some type of forum to let people speak on it
It's important
separately
to note,
from a Facebook post.
it's important to note though that the law doesn't say that we have to give notice. The law says that it should be done in collaboration.
So how about this, right? Just kind of brainstorm. I like the idea, right? And I want to
I
certainly.
can't take credit. Heidi, I talked to Heidi about it and she had the idea.
I like the
Throw me under the bus.
I like the
Thanks.
idea. Right?
I
Yeah.
thought that was,
Oh, kind. Thank you.
I had the idea. Never mind.
Yes, it was all Matt.
I like the idea, regardless.
Yeah.
How about not voting on the second read tonight, right? We'll still move forward with day one lockers, that type of thing. But at our next board meeting, allowing community comment and just having a dedicated time to specifically hear from community members on this topic.
Yeah.
Right before we finalize second read policy.
Yeah, so I think the only thing we have to address is I believe the administration is concerned about what happens on day one of school.
First time.
What is our actual policy right now? Do we have that reasonably accessible?
I can find it. Yeah, give me a few moments. I mean, there's two things. There's policy and there's procedure. They are different things, right? I'm not saying this to be difficult. I want to stress that. But what we are electing to do with procedure, we can do, regardless of what that policy stands. I'm not saying that we should try to be confrontational about this or whatever. But if we feel that there's something that's a distraction for students, and that it's interrupting education, we can put procedures in place. They may be unpopular, but we can do that, right? Now, you run the risk if you put unpopular procedures in place that there will be rebellion and you'll have more problems on your hand than what you intended to do in the first place. But like, there's policy that we can develop, and I would caution with policy, if you're departing from suggested policy, protect yourself, right? Like, this is law we're talking about here. This isn't just like, we want a policy about how you're going to deal with attendance or something like that, right? Like, we have to follow a law with this bell to bell, whether we like it or not, right? Like, I personally don't think it should be a law, right? Like, I don't, but it is, and it's my responsibility as superintendent.
I don't think
to
we're having any disagreement over whether or not there needs to be a policy that prohibits the use of cell phones. We're talking about the mechanism by which we plan on achieving that, right? And so the procedure is built into the policy. We're talking about building a procedure into the policy.
You're then bound by that procedure. If you're going to build the procedure directly into your policy, you're bound by it.
So what was your point then, that there's procedure and then there's policy and they don't have to align?
So just to give, like, I know this is a random example, but this policy is up on our agenda here later on tonight. And it's going to be an apples and orange comparison, but I hope people can understand it. Like, we have graduation requirements, right? And like, we talk about them in broad strokes, that the kid's going to have a graduation required in U.S. history or in literature or whatever the case may be. There are some places, as happened in my previous district, where they would define the specific course that had to be done to met that graduation requirement. We don't do that in our policy. We may have these set of courses that meet this, that meet the competencies and meet the standards associated with it, but we don't define that, so there's flexibility and there's differences in the procedure. If we wanted to change the procedures around that, we can just do that by updating our program of studies and updating our handbooks and those type of things without having to affect the policy. So like, you can do different procedural exercises to enforce things differently or handle challenging situations, whatever the case may be, without touching whatever the policy is, because that's what you have to have legally holding up in court.
So in order for that to be the case in this instance, to sort of apply it to the thought process you're using, us having a policy that just says cell phones are not permitted to be used from bell to bell would allow you to have the broad ability to figure out how you administer that. Us having a policy that says cell phones are not to be used from bell to bell and are to be taken at the start of the school day and placed in a locker does not, that is a prescribed procedure that would have to be adhered to.
If it was in the policy itself.
Which is
Correct.
what our policy was stating.
Our policy was following the suggested one
That's
from the
what it
School
was
Board Association. And it allowed us examples such as, doing this, doing that, whatever the case is.
So from what I can see, unless
You're trying to find the bill because it's
no, I have the bill. Because again, we had done a lot of research on this through policy beforehand, before we sent it to the board to review. And again, the recommendation and the thought process was we will put forward to the board what NHSBA is providing for guidance of language. So when I'm looking at this proposed, our proposed policy, is it fair to say that you're not suggesting in the policy that they be taken away, or are you saying that in the policy? Is the takeaway and put into the locker part of the procedure or part of the policy?
I'm hearing that the restrictions or section B becomes procedure.
In the what proposed one?
Yeah.
All right, give me 1 second. I'll pull that up. I was looking for the old.
While it is best practice that these devices are not brought to school, if they are, they shall be kept with the power off in the locker backpack.
that's the Did this just move on the agenda?
No, it's at the very bottom above old business, above the 7:15 time slot is the links.
There's just too many policies on today's.
Yeah,
agenda.
sorry.
Right. So the suggested language from the School Board Association is that while it, like you just read, while it's best practice that the devices are not brought to school, if these devices are brought to school, they shall be kept with the power turned off and the student's assigned locker, backpack, or handbook bag. So
Yeah, right.
yeah.
So that is the policy that we're putting out there. Through the handbook, the student handbooks is where the procedure is lying,
Right.
and that is
and we would
where
like a more restrictive
you want it to be more
procedure.
restrictive than what
Correct.
policy is. So
Yes.
that's the two differences. So in terms of whether we hold off on our policy or not, I'm not sure that makes a difference as much as it does in terms of the handbooks have already been approved but are pending what our policy says. Is that
That is all true, but like anything, we have this at the board discussion, and if the board feels differently, you can direct me to direct others to do something differently, correct? Like that's how all this works. But like, yes, we are suggesting a more restrictive procedure than what the policy would suggest.
I mean, I would say that if we're indicating in the policy that they shall be kept with power turned off in a student's assigned locker, backpack, or handbag, that language would not be appropriate to include in the policy if we're going to be requiring something.
But if down the road we decided to change our procedures, we're not violating the policy.
I think that this has
Does that,
been
you know-
known for, there's nobody in Litchfield who didn't know that this was coming. All the parents knew it was coming. It's a national news. It's practically on the news every single night. If we step back from what we talked about at the last meeting, if you allow them to have their phones the first 2 weeks of school, and we decide we're going to go with the procedure as is currently written, getting them away is going to be a huge problem.
No, we can't do that. I agree.
So
All-
if we're going,
all-
on day one, I think people have had every opportunity to weigh in on their policies up and down. You're always going to hear more from those who are against the policy, and I read all of them the other night too.
I think it was 50-50. I don't think it was. I think there was plenty of people in support of it.
Yeah, I don't know that it was 50-50, but we've heard teachers here today say how disruptive it is, how the anxiety that it creates with people to be on their cell phones. I see it with my kids. I see it with people I know. Sometimes with me, it's like scrolling, scrolling down, looking at nothing. I think we need to stay with what's been discussed and what's been put forward. I don't think you can do it 2 weeks into the year.
Why can't we approve the policy with the understanding that we can have a community forum and reopen and reapprove, make changes, reapprove if as necessary? Like just because we approve it doesn't mean we can't reopen it and talk about it and make changes to it.
I'm just highlighting the fact that we're consistently saying we need to comply with the statute. We need to comply with the statute. And there's a provision in the statute that says collaborate in collaboration with school parents. And whether or not people are aware that there's a law, I would say that I don't think that people being aware of a law is us collaborating on a policy.
And-
They
and
had,
that
they had
different-
every opportunity to collaborate with us. We're here every
It's
2
not.
weeks.
It's not saying that. But the law doesn't say that parents should seek us out to collaborate with us. It says that we, in creating a policy, should be collaborating with school parents. That's my only point.
the struggle I have?
If your goal is to vote on this tonight as a second read, then by all means.
The struggle I have with it is that the policy and the statute that has been drafted and that has come down does not say take the phones at the beginning of the day as a school, put them in lockers, and then give them back to them at the end of the year. That is the
End of the day.
proposed.
End of the day, not the end of the year.
Sorry. Yes. Oh God, don't freak out over that. Yeah. That is not what the policy is, and that is not what the law says. That is the practice that is being proposed to be implemented.
Right, and I think it makes the most logical sense to again start with the most restrictive policy, because if you
Yeah.
start in the middle, you can never go to the most restrictive policy.
I think my question is around, my understanding was that most of the superintendents in southern New Hampshire all kind of agreed that they were leaning towards or proposing a policy that involved something in a practice that's similar to ours, and that since then that has not been implemented. At least that's not the proposal in Manchester, that's not the proposal in Nashua, and that's not the proposal in Hudson.
I don't want to speak for other superintendents.
I
It's not
understand,
my
but
place.
I think it's important to know our surrounding districts.
And we are certainly more restrictive, and I'll be honest, I'm surprised by that, based upon, I haven't asked anyone point blank exactly what you're doing. There's been general discussions with some people, right? All types of level of people, teachers, superintendents, principals, everything that there is, educators that talk about this stuff. And I was surprised that we are certainly more proposing set of procedures that are more restrictive than what other school districts are. Because I think if we could manage what most, and we'll just cut to the chase, what most other school districts are doing is having kids keep them in their backpacks. And if that was a successful way to manage cell phones, we wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place.
What were the consequences though?
I'm telling you, Matt, with all due respect, from being a building level administrator for
But I'm
12
just
years,
asking, what were the consequences?
I would suspend kids eventually for it, and it didn't matter, right?
Kids were getting suspended, and
or it would get into what the most common thing is if a kid had a cell phone up and I was called as either an assistant principal or a principal to deal with it, the kid would say, "You're not touching my phone," and it becomes an issue of defiance then. Right? Like we've totally interrupted the discussion. Instead of it being a 2-second thing, now it's a face-to-face getting involved, the kid yelling, screaming, "You're not touching my property, blah, 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 blah. Nothing you can do about this. What are you going to do about it?" And instead of it being a 2-second issue, right, and then we can move on with learning, we've now heightened the situation where we're not dealing with a cell phone, we're dealing with that type of confrontation, right? So eventually the kid's swearing at me, whatever the case may be, all right, you're out. Right? Like that's the case is. Or they're having that confrontation with the teacher or whatever the case may be. Or teachers just get worn out from the entire process and stop trying to enforce it, right? Because all it takes is like that one to start, and teachers are human, right? Like they are human. Like, and it is hard. If you don't have the respect of some veteran teachers to establish that type of culture, it's very hard. And so you can get that over time. And then it just wanes. You know, I was talking to a teacher and this analogy, and I hate to revisit this, but it was a good analogy in my head. It was the same when we were enforcing masks in school, right? Like you just became about enforcement all the time. Learning became secondary. Pull your mask up, pull your mask up, pull your mask up. I don't want to pull my mask up. What are you going to do about it? You're not going to touch me. You're not going to pull my mask up for me. Like that. And these would be good kids. I had good relationships.
Going to put their cell phone in a locker.
But if we establish something from the, to be honest, I have no idea if it's going to work. But I know what we've been doing.
If that student doesn't put their phone in the locker, do we believe that that same teacher that wasn't willing to enforce the policy when it was having it in your backpack is going to say, "Oh, I see that you didn't put your phone in the locker"? Like, I
think if we do it from day one,
concern,
yeah,
right?
It's a valid concern. I think if we do that in day one of this school year, we're going to probably have some confrontations in the first couple of weeks, right? But we're either going to figure out if this can become a norm that we can accept, or if we have to look at this from a different perspective, right? I think there are people on both sides of it, right? Like I think there are, and then there are people kind of in the middle who don't know what the right answer is, right? Like I think there are people who are very adamant, like do not do this with the phones, like my kid needs their phone. And there are people like, great, take it out of my kid's hands. It's a struggle for me at home to get it out of their hands, right? If you can pull it off, God bless you, right? And then I think there are people who are like, well, let's see if this has an effect, right? Like, does it work if it's out of hand? I will speak of Pelham, and I have no like data to do this, just conversationally with the superintendent there, right? They went to the Yonder pouches last year at the middle school and the high school. They're the pouches where the kids have to put it in. It's a magnetic lock, and then they can't access their phone. And they said the behavior improved, engagement improved, attendance improved, everything improved across the board because the kids could not get to their phones over the course of a school day, right? It was locked up from when they walked into the building to the end of the day. We're not doing Yonder pouches, frankly, because they're too expensive. Like we just don't have the resources to do those. So we're going with but it's the same idea. You're not going to be able to access it at all during that day. And the initial hurdles for them in the first couple of weeks was hard. But once they got past that, again, this is from I don't have the data myself, but that it worked. That kids recognized that they were more engaged. They were doing better. They weren't going to their phone and stuff like that. In general, I'm sure there are still kids. I'm sure they still have issues with it, but it did improve their culture, their engagement, their everything that was going on in their schools.
There's
I'm
no
of the
DoorDash
opinion-
deliveries.
I'm of the opinion we approve the policy, arm the staff and the administration with the policy on day one, with the understanding that, hey, I still want to hear from people, right? I still want to understand if there is true feedback. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to reopen and understand if we don't have it right. I want to know.
I love a genuine try of this, right? Like we're not arrogant enough to believe that this is 100% going to work, right? Like, and if we have to pivot down the road, we will certainly pivot down the road. We want to do what's right for everybody, right? But this is an issue and we haven't solved it. We collective in education, period. We haven't solved it, right? Like, so we got to try something different. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again.
I see
Gotta try
all three
something different.
principals
Yeah, they're ready to weigh in.
ready to go. So I want to just give them a moment.
Yeah, can I just can I pause and say Jen's jumping over the chair. I just want to say, would it be easier to do that with parent cooperation and collaboration, or
That's my hang.
is it hammering it in despite not having that necessarily? That's the concern I have.
I fully understand what you're saying about the collaboration with the parent piece when it comes to policy. What I worry about, so we can write whatever we want for policy, right? Like if we can literally write whatever for a school district policy, like that is within the power of the board to approve something that goes along those lines, right? But we're talking about a law. This isn't just like managing the school.
Talking about a law
We're
that says in collaboration
But,
with parents. You're
like,
ignoring
we-
that piece of it.
I'm not trying to ignore it, but like if parent X comes in and says like, I don't believe the law. You shouldn't write a policy that follows the law. We can't do that, like in good faith. Like
Of
we
course
can't
we can.
have a policy that does, well, you run the risk of like violating the law,
Honestly,
whatever the case is.
policy-wise, I don't think anyone here is advocating for anything different than what's written in the policy, because the policy does not govern, is not what is the procedure. That's not, and the practice. It seems to be the debate is around the practice, not so much the language in the policy, because the language in the policy just says away.
Right.
The policies just put it away. The practice, the handbook language that actually lays out the procedures is what I think.
Well, first and foremost,
It's
that
an issue.
contradicts the policy, right? Because we're saying in the policy that it has to be in their backpack, or I don't have the policy in front of me. And then we're in our handbook, we're saying actually it's not that, it's that we're gonna have you put it in a locker. And again, that may be fine. My concern is that we did not collaborate with parents,
Can,
and that is part of the law.
can I play devil's advocate? Because it's my favorite role to play in that case.
Certainly can.
We have Superintendent O'Connell and all three principals have sent it out in the last 2 communications regarding here's what it is, here's the policy, here's the information. Inundated with the back to school letters, with the links in the loop.
You've given notice.
We've given information regarding
Given
what
notice, but you haven't
the
collaborated.
practice. Hold on a second. So, in many circumstances, when there's a challenging bit of information out there, what do we look for parents? We look for communication. We look for an email. We look for communication to say, hey, you sent this out. I'm not understanding this. I've had 2 parents ask questions, not confronting, but ask questions about what does this mean? How does this work? And in those 2 parents, I've been able to pick up the phone call in collaboration and say, hey, what's your question? How can I help you solve this problem? Oh, this is how this is going to work. Here's how we're going to help your student handle any frustration or concern regarding not having their cell phone on their person. We've had the practice for my 4 years here in Litchfield. I'm entering my 5th year of off and away. It does not work. It is constant enforcement. Our teachers, and I'm going to say I can speak for my teachers, they try like there is no tomorrow. I can look back at Carolyn and I can look at Robin here, and it's not that they're giving up and not trying to enforce the practice, but kids are going to find their way around. They're going to go to the bathroom and they're going to say, I got to go to the bathroom, and they're going to make a TikTok, or they're going to take pictures of people's feet underneath bathroom stalls, which we've had happen in the past, or they're going to do something in a time when we can't be in the bathroom watching what's happening, whether they're filming a TikTok. It's not going to be a place that we have people stationed. We want to protect their privacy. They're going to take photographs. They're going to text their parents. They're going to say, come dismiss me. Now, when a child texts their parent and says, come dismiss me, and the parent shows up at the window and said, oh, Fred Flintstone just texted me, said to come get him. Am I going to then look at the parent and go, now I need to take your child's phone from them when you're taking them out because they just broke procedure and that whole interaction?
So again, I'm not arguing with you whether or not there's a justification for implementing a policy like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that the law says it shall be developed in collaboration with school parents. That's the words in the law. It has not been developed in collaboration with school parents. It has been developed by the policy committee in conjunction with the administration and communicated to parents, but it has not been developed in collaboration. So as far as I'm concerned, we are ripe for that being challenged by the 100 people that commented on that Facebook post. That's my point. My point is that we should have a forum. We can still enact that policy. It doesn't mean that people have to agree. They can come in and say, I hate it, I think it's stupid, but it's at least being done in collaboration as we're supposed to do. That's my problem.
And I guess, so speaking of the law, so I think to where we went with having kids actually put their phones someplace completely away in a protected space, not near themselves or on their person, is the law also says the consequences, which is interesting. So the state kind of gives us some, hey, this is what you kind of have to do, but oh, here's what you need to do for consequences. And they're pretty clear, right? And then the second offense that we have to, first offense, a warning, we take the phone, right? I would notify the parent just to let them know. But the second offense, the parent has to come and get the phone. So part of our thought process was like, okay, so either way, this is going to be difficult, right? For a parent and students, but there are parents that are going to struggle just as much as their kids with the phone not necessarily being right there in a moment's notice. But I envision, if we don't do something more restrictive, not only can we then never go there, or then it would be so much harder to rein everything back in, but we also are going to be calling parents daily to come pick their kids' phones up. And so then I'm going to be I guess it's like, where do I want to have the parent frustration? Because if we don't just take them away and not have them on the kids at all, then I'm going to be calling parents to come pick their kids' phones up because, to your point, I have to follow that law. I have to follow that policy. So you're right. Zach and I, any given day, might have 10 parents that we have to have come pick up their kids' phones. Those probably aren't going to be fun conversations, probably 50-50. I worked at a school. We were one of the earliest to implement a really strict policy with cell phones, no electronic devices. It was really, and the first year it was like, oh, just keep them away. Nope, didn't work. Second year we had a procedure. I followed up. I made sure staff were following it. And if they weren't, I had a conversation with them and said, you need to do this. This is the expectation. This way, it's a one and done. It's the staff first thing in the morning. Everybody's in it together. Everyone at one point on one day in my building will have to do it. And then it's done for the rest of the day. And then the third period version of that teacher is going to be so happy that they never had to even think about it. I think too, I'm going to collect feedback. I'm a huge feedback person. I've already sent stuff out to my staff. I want your voice. I want to hear from you. I will do the same with students. I want to hear, hey, and ask them questions that are going to really hey, have you noticed that you've been engaging more in class? I would like to gather feedback, which can also include from parents. Because I think you're right. I think time restrictions, thank you, State of New Hampshire, for telling us we had to get this figured out over the summer. Instead of saying, hey, prepare to do this in a year from now. Awesome. So, and I don't know if that matters in your, hey, I can live with this now, because I'm going to promise you I will collect feedback and then go from there. But
I understand your frustration, Matt, and I will own that, in retrospect, I could have been more actively engaging in collaboration with parents.
I'm not blaming you for this.
No,
I agree that this was thrown at us over the summer.
And I think why I instinctively didn't take a different approach is because I'm really worried about the intent of the law, right? Again, whatever my personal feelings are on whether or not this should be a law and appropriateness of kids using cell phones, and I know no one from Bo is watching this, but I have teachers who, if they ever heard me saying this hardcore procedure, are smirking because I was not necessarily known for that as a principal, and it pissed them off a lot. But my fear with how that collaboration piece coming, not because I don't want to collaborate with families, not because I don't want to collaborate with teachers, but I'm really worried that we accidentally put ourselves in a vulnerable situation with the intent of the bell-to-bell ban, right? And I don't want to throw shade or any shots at any districts. It's not what I'm saying. In my opinion, with what the intent of the bell-to-bell ban is, was to get them out of the kids' hands, and like to make sure that the policy that we have in place, we don't accidentally put something in place that makes us vulnerable to what the intent of the law was, right? So I think in that effort to like, hey, for a policy, just take what is suggested and let it be, right? Like we don't need to like, because this is going to change as the law kind of progresses and people put it into place. I wouldn't be shocked if different aspects of it change over time or more clarity is given or whatever the case may be. I don't want to put policy, which is the legal language we're bound by, that puts the district in a vulnerable situation. So I probably was not as collaborative as I could have been seeking out parent input for the policy component of it.
So, but I'm going to throw this out there. I do this all the time. I create trainings, I create policies at work, and they are revved, right? Like we have a review board that comes up and we rev the policies. I don't see any issues to what Andrew or Mr. Cutter suggested is we do the second read, we enact the policy, and then let's say at the end of September, we hold a public forum, gives the schools, the students, the parents
All the time.
a month to get used to it. You get your 2-week break-in period, and hopefully teachers either haven't pulled all their hair out because of it, or and it gets students used to it, right? Because the initial reaction is always going to be kickback. And but with that, and barring specific circumstances and use cases of where exceptions need to be made, but barring the looking at just get out of their hands, get them engaged, you got to give it time to work. You can't do it on day 2 because everyone's going to say, I hate this. It's got to be given time. So I think that gives us, one, looking at the policy and what the restrictions are is essentially the policy states off and away, essentially. The procedure states it gets locked, right? So I think the policy's fine, is in full compliance with the laws. I understand it from a non-legal background, but that's kind of the questions that I have is I fully support what Mr. Cutter said of enact it and then do a follow-up, not at the next school board meeting, but give it a month into the semester.
Maybe the October 1st meeting.
Is that the next? Yeah.
Well, no, there's 2 on September the 3rd and the 17th, but 10-1 would give them a whole month in school.
Yeah.
I don't have your handbooks in front of me, Dan. Yours probably doesn't really matter. Unfortunately.
He's just
Good-
here for
good for you.
support.
But for your handbooks, what are the consequences for violating it?
So like if a kid had a burner phone, for example, because the teacher I'm really hoping, and we're gonna have a whole student assembly before the kids go to their block 1 class. And, Zach, myself, our counseling director and our athletic director, we're gonna tell the kids, listen, we're all gonna do this. Staff are gonna the expectation is also staff don't have their phones. They're not using their phones either. And I'm gonna hold them to that. I never have my phone on me when I'm at work. I've really tried to model a practice and be, focused on my job so that I'm not giving something else my attention. And I'm really hoping that they all go back to that block 1 teacher and everybody can say, and I'll come over the intercom, okay, at this time, your teachers are going to assign you a slot in your designated space. They'll put their phone in the same spot every day. And I really hope there's minimal pushback. I mean, if there is, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Unfortunately, too, it turns into, not complying with a reasonable request, not doing what we're asking you to do. And we have everything outlined. If kids are going to leave early, if they know they're getting dismissed, then they would come to the main office and we'll have some there. We're going to have probably anywhere from 5 to 10 lockers down there. Some are going to be designated for the athletic team. So you're on the soccer team, you're leaving at 1 today. When you get to school, your phone goes there. So you're not disrupting
So
the
I
teacher.
don't mean to interrupt, but I understand.
okay.
I understand the
Yep.
policy. What I'm
Yep.
asking is, what is the consequence if someone violates the? I'm calling it a practice.
So first offense for us
Is to take it.
is to take it and put it in the cabinet and say, hey, this is your reminder. This is where it's supposed to go. You must have forgotten to put yours in there this morning.
Right.
Because everybody has those moments where I forgot.
Is that an admin or is that a teacher?
Well, the teacher's gonna have to tell us. if
Teacher's
they
going to
see
have
it.
to tell
They're
us
gonna-
that
yeah.
that's what they see.
If
Yeah.
that happens, then they would involve an admin.
Correct.
It depends on where that occurs. Like if it's in a hallway and Jeff or I see it, then obviously that's going to be us, where it would come down to the office and sit in the cabinet. Second offense says parent has to come get it.
Yep.
And it's going to be, that's where it's going to be, the pushback is going to be really
Yep.
big and hard when we have the kids who are going to bring I'm going to take my dad's old iPhone 3 and put it in the box.
That was on
We-
Facebook.
We know that's going to happen. We're not surprised. We're not blind to that idea that
maybe the
that's
kids
going to
knew.
take place.
Right.
But it's how that child responds when we go to them and say, that big rectangle in your hoodie that we can see that is a cell phone in your pocket, you need to put that in the box. And they say, I'm not going to put it in the box. Then it's not about the phone anymore.
So the last thing I'll say on this, because I know Andrew's going to start cutting me off soon, is two of you have indicated that when you implemented when you enforced policies that weren't necessarily required by statute, but nonetheless you enforced, you had positive results.
Correct.
It has been abundantly clear to me that there are a multitude of teachers who do not want to enforce or just look the other way. And so all I'm going to say is, I don't know how you plan to have all of a sudden magically have them start enforcing something just because the statute only says that we have to have a policy, right?
Mhm.
So no one's going to haul them off in handcuffs. We're acting as though they're going to be thrown in jail if they don't enforce this policy. So all I'm going to say is, it's people like you who actually are willing to enforce policies that, that's the only way we're going to see results.
And I hope, and the idea is that by having everyone put their phones away first thing, now Miss Gaspar doesn't have to enforce it the rest of the day. She's not going to see any phones.
Well,
She can actually
hopefully.
focus on her teaching. But I hope that then if there are one-offs, I don't anticipate there being hundreds of, 100 cell phone. I really think the kids are going to be good about it. Is my real hope. I mean, and I don't have rose-colored glasses on, not today, but I really want the teachers to teach. I don't want them to have to enforce this. I don't want, years ago I
Just
worked.
to be clear, I don't support kids being on their cell
No,
phones in
I-
class.
yeah.
Like, I don't want it to sound like that.
No, I don't feel that way. It's like, like Brian said, the mask comparison, or years ago I worked at a school, kids couldn't wear hats or hoodies. What that was like. And there were teachers who just were like, I'm just going to go, and I don't want, that creates a bad culture. So I think with the small staff, we're very fortunate. Everybody the expectation is you are on the same page. We're all here together. It's a collective commitment. And if we're not going to all do it, it's going to be a problem. And, I think when we have to be flexible, if there's students who, need to keep their phones in different locations, if there's, we've already also heard from a couple parents and are working with those scenarios. So I also don't want people to hear like, we're trying to do this to be mean. We're trying to do this to be any other way other than we want you to learn. We want you to be the best you can be. We want you to talk to each other, play games, maybe, who knows, just socialize the way that they need to. So.
This is my last question on it before Andrew stops us. If there are parents out there watching and they believe that their student should have an exception underneath either the medical or the other standard that's there, who should they contact?
Yep.
What do they need to fill out? And how quickly will that be put into place? Because as a parent with kiddos with an IEP meeting and a 504, there's certain timelines that have to be requested if a parent requests a meeting. I don't know that all of that will be, how quick all of that will go.
It will
So that's
not-
my question.
I haven't spoken, so I can actually speak to that.
Here we go.
So
He
that
knows.
would so if that's the case, more likely than not, 95% of the chance the student would either have an IEP or a 504, so they should reach out to the 504 coordinator or their case manager, and then Sarah Pooler has actually already provided us with deliberation forms. So like any other decision that would go through the 504 special ed process, there would be a deliberation and a team decision that they would go through and question marks to decide whether or not that is a qualifying accommodation that would be applied to the plan.
Perfect.
We do have timelines we
They
have to
do.
follow, but we do understand that some of these decisions have to be done quicker than
Yeah.
maybe
Kind
others.
of the
right?
essence
Yeah.
for some.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. This policy is on the agenda for later this evening. Once we get into policies for second read, we're going to leave it there this evening and we'll vote
Thank
at
you.
that time. Thank you. Appreciate all the input. We're going to shift gears and move over into the business administrator report.
Excellent. So one thing I did want to first mention as far as spending, I know obviously last year being our first year, certainly need to improve on keeping closer track with regard to spending and making sure that the end of year balance is not as large. So that is something that I'm certainly going to be focusing on this year, and also working within the default budget, of course, keeping a close eye on things and making sure that we're, if there is money that we're not using in one area, that we're trying to utilize that to cover things that perhaps weren't included in the default budget. So I'm very mindful of that. With regard to impact fees, we wanted to discuss that this evening. We do have quite a bit of impact fee potential funding available, particularly for LMS and CHS. I did put the balances, and that's as of June 2025, which is the most recent one that I had. We do have a small portion of some of the funds for GMS specifically that are set to expire this November. The superintendent and I have been discussing some potential ways to use those funds. There's, of course, a process that we would need to go through asking the select board for permission to use the funds. And of sort, there's also a lot of very specific requirements with regard to using impact fees. For instance, most of those things need to already be on the capital improvement plan list. So we do need to be mindful of that, and that they are, of course, directly related to increasing capacity due to the new developments, because that's where the money is coming from. So that is something that we are discussing, those options.
May I jump in for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Peter, help me out with this. You were there the other night too. We were at the capital planning meeting Monday night. Impact fees came up, talking about it. We believe we could use the GMS impact fees and put it towards the pre-construction services. Kim seemed to think that was a possibility. That we could take, if that was the board's will, we could take that, and then, you know, we had the public hearing earlier today for up to. So if we were able to take those impact fees and then reduce down what we would have to take out of that fund, it sounds like that could hold up. Like, if that's something that the board is interested in, we don't have to make that decision tonight, but.
And I'd like to add to the impact fee discussion, if I may, just for consideration. Apologies for not sending the August reports to you. I do receive them on a monthly basis. I just sent them to you. There are notable changes to the numbers. Okay.
Thank you.
Elementary hasn't changed, 20,481.45. High school big jump, 255,975. Okay, and LMS big jump, 172,054.
Right. Something we kind of were spitballing. We're a little less certain about this one, but like with the LMS, if we do have to do something to that parking lot that is on the CIP plan, could we take that LMS impact fee? Because in theory, it's getting more use, right? More people are driving on it, so on and so forth, because more people in town. That money could be used to offset that eventual cost down the road. So that would be another thing for those impact fees. It was a good, I know we're not as certain about
Yeah.
that one.
I don't think so.
Yeah. We're going to try it, test the waters, and see what the town's attorneys think of that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that was definitely an attorney question. I don't view
Yeah.
that as an expansion of service.
I know. We're going to try. We're going to ask.
Yeah.
See how it goes. This is a separate conversation. Maybe it's not the right place for it, but like that field at LMS that came up with, when we're talking about soccer at Dara and those type of things, and the field that's kind of at LMS, if we were to rehab that in some capacity, could that be something that impact feeds?
There's a Litchfield.
That leach field was the soccer field.
It was grass on it.
Yeah.
Track.
So I don't know. There are some things that we've talked about that are in that capital plan that maybe this stuff can access, but
I think we have to do some more investigation with
But-
Jamin Kara is there.
Yeah.
At the next meeting, and
But-
we can have
yeah,
those
and that's
conversations.
on September 1st or whenever that meeting is. So,
2 weeks.
And then speaking of that, because, items do need to be on the CIP list, I just want to kind of put on everyone's radar that that's something that we should be thinking more about, is projects that we do want to add to the list or request to be on the list, so that we'll be in a good spot if we wanted to try to tap into those
Because
funds.
there were three things that were bundled at the last, right? The
Yeah.
parking lot, the fields, something else.
Something else.
Playground maybe. We can separate those, and we should look at the current 30-year plan and see what we can add.
I think we just bring that, right?
Yeah,
Like, and then look at the 5 years, or 6 years, whatever that one is at. Here's the 6 years on our plan. Boom,
Put it on.
there it is. Yeah.
That gives us the eligibility.
What I'd like to see is a fairly immediate plan for the 5,768.
That's why we're thinking, could we do that for those pre-construction services, right? Like, we can apply at least that if we don't want to do all of the GMS funds, to at least offset some of the costs for that, because it's got to be connected to that stuff on that CIP plan for the town. And school, it's classified as a new school, but we feel renovation still fits what the purpose of that marker on the CIP is.
Yeah.
So we could it's just taking less money out of that reserve fund, and then we have that reserve fund for something else down the road if need rises. So, because we bounced around some other ideas, but like,
Yeah,
there's nothing was sticking.
this will require Board of Selectmen approval.
Yeah.
To withdraw from these impact fees.
We will work on that immediately.
Is the board comfortable with that idea? I mean, we're not committing to it right this second, but taking these to offset some of that
I
pre-construction.
mean, I
cost.
think, since it has to be used for increasing capacity, it's like, what else are we going to do at GMS to increase capacity?
So they were explaining at the hearing, like, because we were trying to and jump in whenever, because it's still confusing to me.
That's
Like, it's based on an assumption that the tax base is growing, but they haven't paid into it with the people coming into the town, but they're going to use the services provided.
Right.
So even let's say you had 20 houses built, right? And you're collecting impact from those fees. There's no guarantee any students are moving into those 20 houses. Like, there could be 0 new students for the district. So we haven't felt any of that growth from that development, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't get impact fees and can't apply it to the idea of what that development could do to our schools. So looking at our understanding is with what we're talking about with GMS, which is that renovation and or addition based upon reaching maximum. One of the factors is the maximum capacity in that building. That
I think that's a good use of that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what else would we do that would enhance
okay,
capacity?
I see what you're
We also talked about the playground at GMS.
Talked about
with more
playground.
people in more
Yeah.
people in town.
But we don't know if that's going to get passed. Yeah, Kim said didn't think that was likely to pass. We talked about this was more in CHS, but similar to GMS. I'll use a CHS example, but if we have a classroom we use for storage at CHS essentially, right? And it's a primarily big theater stuff, right? Like the staging they use. If we were to take it out of that classroom, we could expand our programming into that classroom. Our idea was to turn it into an engineering room, right? Which could then be attractive for people as they move in the community to stay engaged in our schools. Would that count for the impact fees, right? Like the storage unit that we would then purchase to allow us to expand our offerings within the school and those type of things. We don't know if that's going to hold, but we're trying to get creative with the ideas of, if we purchase something, a storage unit, this or whatever, that creates additional access to our own stuff, does that fall within this expansion idea?
Well, I mean, could we spin this? And I guess I'll use it. Can we spin this into upkeep and upgrade of critical utilities like HVAC? More people in the town, higher load on HVAC, so they're going to wear out faster.
We don't know, and that's where it gets sticky. It feels like no.
We need
but-
some answers. I think we need more direction on.
Yeah, I think we could get more advice from Jay from NRPC to help us better understand how to use them appropriately.
But to answer your direct question, I think that would be a good use of the GMS money if that was appropriate.
I think so. Because I can look at that as to offset the cost and the rise of first student bus contracts, right? Or propane contracts, or bills. And I mean, if we're using the utilities more because there's more people in the building, that's technically we're absorbing that cost of expansion.
But some of that stuff is, so part of this, because I was along those thinking too, but it has to be something that can be put on that capital planning
Right.
like document, right? So like the busing example, like we would never put, unless we were purchasing our own buses, right? We wouldn't put that on the capital improvement plan, right?
Looking ahead at the business administrator's report, there looks like there is some
Oh, a van?
discussion about
Yes,
needing transportation, smaller transportation.
yes.
That might be
That might be something that we could, no pun intended, kick the tires on and say,
You intended that pun, I think.
I've been waiting for it for 10 minutes.
I have. But yeah, is that something that would fit, you know? So we're trying to spend this money desperately.
Okay, well, I think the board's open to it. We just
Yeah.
let's put together a kind of a more rock solid
Yeah.
plan on how and,
Yeah.
and what will be a legitimate reason for usage of that
Yeah.
money.
Oh, you didn't say more to come.
I was gonna say for him, but hasn't been doing that lately.
It's because you called them out on it.
I like it.
More to come.
There we go. Thank
You
you.
that he's mad about the cell phone discussion
Yeah.
that you that wouldn't close.
What's next?
Turn off the time.
I need to give an update on the Hudson fire alarm monitoring fee. There's something I talked about a few meetings ago, that there is going to be fees because Hudson does, even though, you know, Litchfield, here we are, Hudson is where our fire alarm monitoring goes. So there is now going to be a fee. There's going to be a one-time connection fee, and then there will be an annual fee for each of the 3 lines. So those fees have been waived for 2025. Our town administrator is wonderful and was able to negotiate them not charging us for that year. But for the calendar year 2026, we are going to be charged. So we will receive invoices in January of 26. Of course, in default budget and not having budgeted for this, we will have to find the money for that. So we will do so. But just at least moving forward, we can appropriately plan for those annual fees.
16.
The DOE 25, hopefully will be much smoother this year, having spent a lot of time with it last year. But I am working on that now. We have filed an extension for it to be due on October 1st. We anticipate that being approved, as most extensions are. And I am also working with someone that has a tool that can be implemented to assist with the efficiency of getting the data pulled for the DOE 25. So that's something that I'm working on as well.
Why did we need to file an extension?
It's due September 1st, and it's a really short timeline, particularly when you don't have all of your audited numbers in time. So it's not unusual. Just about every district files extensions to October 1st to give them more time to prepare the report, making sure it's as accurate as possible.
Okay.
And then, yes, so for co-curricular transportation, at VHS, the golf team they're planning their transportation to meets, and per our transportation contract with First Student, for any co-curriculars, we do need to, we have to have first refusal. So our athletic director is trying to think outside the box because it is quite expensive, of course, to have a bus, and particularly for a team that has much fewer students. He was looking into the possibility of could we use renting a van basically for some of these meets. So it's something that I looked into. I did reach out to Primex, did go through our policies and whatnot, but first we would have to start with the contract. So what I would be asking is basically, is this something that the board would feel comfortable with me asking First Student if they would be willing to basically negotiate an ability for us to try to use other transportation for certain co-curricular events? Obviously not all. But in a circumstance such as this, would we be able to use other transportation without, obviously?
What did Primex say?
Primex said, I mean, they gave us a lot of information that we obviously want to make sure that we're not violating our own policies. I know this is something that came up, I believe, last year with some kind of co-curricular event and using
We've talked about
other
something,
transportation,
people
right.
driving And
It was a lot of that information. You got to provide your insurance coverage. You have to sign off that, this type of form and stuff. Our policies cover some of this with the self-transportation stuff.
Picking kids up from Boston for something.
Airport. Yeah, something.
Yeah. So they gave us the similar language that would.
so, but did
I
they
think
say
so.
that we would have coverage for, like, if it's a coach that's
A
driving?
staff member,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As long as they provide all that information.
Right, so that would be the one thing that we would probably want to add to our procedures is have some kind of attestation that the driver would sign off on. Basically, that they have a clean driving record. It doesn't require us to run their record, but for them to sign off saying they do have a clean driving record, and that obviously if they're employed with us, we have already done background checks on that person.
So could we not use first student to, I mean, they've got smaller buses over there.
Yeah, well,
They do, they're still quite pricey.
I was gonna say that.
So
that's
do
where
they
I
have
was-
to say, we're not interested?
What's that?
Do they have to say, we're not interested in doing
Correct,
this?
they have to have first refusal for co-curriculars at this point. So if they were able to do it, then we do need to.
We would see it, or you would see it in 'cause it's much better now, but there's driver shortages, right? So bus companies were willing to engage in these conversations, especially for some of these smaller trips, right? I don't think we're in the same dire state as we were probably 3 or 4 years ago when it comes to bus shortages. At least First doesn't feel that way. We run into some, but not significant in this district. But that would be something where, depending on the trip, sometimes they have to find additional drivers for us. And if that's not, that can be burdensome and costly for them, right? So it might be something they're willing to engage in a conversation with us on like very limited basis. Golf team might be one team, less than 10 kids, right? Like that makes sense, right? The smaller buses usually are dedicated to special ed transportation, which are lengthier routes potentially and hard to get a hold of. So it's something they might say, nope, we can cover everything. And if that's the case, it's a contract we have to honor and stuff. So
we should just like put a little bookmark on this for next time we negotiate our contract.
We should, yeah. And I think certainly I'm open to the continued discussion with first student and getting the information, right? And let's see how it progresses.
Yeah, agreed.
Makes sense for the board?
Yep.
All right.
That's all we have. Thank you.
All right. It's not 8 o'clock. Turning right along over to curriculum.
All right. So last meeting, Mr. Clancy asked about the grant allocations. So I put together our budget summary that went in with our consolidated application, so you can see what our preliminary allocations are, and then what we have. The description is what they're kind of earmarked. The funds are earmarked for. That doesn't guarantee that's what they're going for because things change, needs change, etc. But these are what is anticipated to go towards each thing. So you'll see Title I, we have a preliminary allocation of $113,196.35, which is really nice. It's up from last year, which now last year's allocation was about 96, and we were hurting to try to cover, but I was able to roll over what was unspent from the previous Title I grant, so we could cover our stuff. So we're in a much better spot this year with Title I. And part of that grant goes to the private schools in the area. Tabernacle does not participate in Title I, but St. Francis does. So part of our allocation for salaries and supplies goes to them. And
so
then,
how does that compare to what we needed last year to cover? Would this cover everything that we needed to?
this covers what we need.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not stressing this year to cover. We actually had to split fund a Title I tutor with partial district funds last year. This year I was able to roll over all of them into the grant because we have enough to cover.
Good.
Which is great. And then our Title II allocation. Title II is for teacher and educator professional development. So our preliminary allocation is for $33,948, which is again really nice. to go towards all things teacher professional learning. And again, Tabernacle does not participate in Title II, but St. Francis does. So a certain portion of our allocation does go to them for their teacher professional development as well. And then Title IV, we have 12,078.84, and that is going to be focused more on our multi-tiered systems of support, data-driven decision making, all that kind of thing. Tabernacle usually participates in Title IV, but through conversations I had with Ms. Small, the principal over there, with the stringent nature of Title IV grant, they opted not to participate this year, and we're going to reconnect in the spring to see if they had something that aligns more with the grant with the grant needs, but they don't right now. But St. Francis is participating in that, so they'll get part of that. And something that's not on here because it is just brand new as of last week, and we're still looking into the logistics of, is Title I allocations. The way that they came out, we got notified from the state that there's a possibility that we could participate in a $10,000 school improvement grant that's part of Title I. There's a lot of logistical things that go into that, and it's very fast moving. We were on a call with the state yesterday, Brian, myself, and Sarah. And then Sarah and I were on the phone with the state again for about half an hour this morning to talk more about the logistical pieces. So we're still looking into that, but we might get another $10,000 towards school improvement that would go towards literacy initiatives at Griffin. So more to come on that. Any questions?
If I can just add to that last bit, the reason why we could pause on that, because it could actually cost us money, right? Like to do it fully what the state would like you to do if you take on this grant, like buy this certain program, make sure you have licenses to do it, all of it. The grant's capped at 10. We want to make sure that we're not inadvertently, by accepting this money, on the hook for down the road, additional costs and stuff like that. So if anyone's watching, like, well, why don't you just take the money? We don't want.
That's the case with all grant money, right?
Not always. Like with some of the
a lot of grant money.
But
There's a lot of red tape that goes with grants. There's a lot of constraints that are put on you if you take it. And it's, like I said, I strive to spend every single grant dollar that we possibly can. It's hard to do that sometimes with some of the parameters that they put on some of these monies, but always find a way to think outside the box and figure it out. So we're really working and looking into the specifics, because this literally just came to us last week. I think Brian just submitted that we would be interested in participating, but then we got on this call yesterday and we were like, that's a lot of things. So we wanted to make sure we were very, very clear on all of those things, that it wasn't going to end up costing us in the long run. So we'll see. Hopefully it won't. I think we have a good plan. We were talking a lot with Dan, obviously because it impacts Griffin, about what we can do with these funds. So it's more to come. The next thing is vertical alignment meetings. We're really excited that we're going to continue them again this year. And I'm doing all content areas again.
I want to hear the excitement.
I'm
You
sorry.
can't see the excitement in this
See the
beautiful.
excitement in my face. I'm so excited about it. I would jump up and down, but
There we go.
not at this time. So, but yeah, no, I am genuinely really grateful that we can do these meetings. We had them last year. It's a lot, but it's a lot of great work. It's great communication and collaboration amongst all teachers in that subject area, K to 12. So it's phenomenal. It does take a lot on the schools because of sub coverage and all of that kind of stuff, but it just shows that we're serious about vertical alignment, and that continues to be one of my CIA focus areas this year. My CIA focus areas from last year are carried over again to this year because we made really good headway in vertical alignment. We're not done. We still have a lot of work to do. So the dates, we're meeting October 9th with math. Then phys ed and wellness is going to be December 16th. ELA is January 22nd. Social studies March 26th. The computer tech team April 21st. And science is May 5th. So if anybody's out there watching and you are interested at all in subbing and you want to put those dates on your calendar, you can, call the schools. You can sign up to be a sub. It's a great effort amongst the districts, and we need help for sub coverage on those days, especially. The superintendent goes out and subs those days because it's worth it. It's really great work, really great conversations with staff. So I'm excited to continue those this year.
Just on that, right? I'd like to see as you go into those sessions what your ideal outcomes are, right? What are you hoping to get outcome based out of those sessions, and then what are we doing about it?
Yeah, I can. Do you want to see my agendas and slideshows from last year?
I remember them.
Sure.
I remember them. But we're in year 2 now, right?
Yeah.
So what is continuous? What is changing?
Yep.
How are we moving the needle?
Yep, absolutely. Do you want me to tell you some of my plans right now?
Briefly.
Briefly.
He wants to know, but
He's asking me to be.
he's got a
brief.
timeline he's got to stick to here.
No, really.
I didn't expect an answer tonight. It was more like future state, right? But that's
Yeah, and I can.
You
brief,
asked.
but-
You got a good answer. She's
last
got a plan.
year, I mean, you had to know it would be in my head. Come on. Last year was a lot of the content area teachers. They hadn't been in a room together for years, so it was oh my gosh, what do you do at the elementary school? What do you do at the middle school and high school? Oh my goodness. So there's a lot of information gathering that day. And it was, oh wow, look at these standards. Let's look at them and really understand them. Right. So it was a lot of that. And this year we can really get into the meat of it. We can really start, okay, now we've really broken down the standards. Let's look at that and get into progressions. How are we looking at learning targets? What are the priority standards for each content area? And how do we know students have attained proficiency in that, right? So we can really start getting into a actual work session and dig in instead of learning about things. Now we're in it. We're ready to move and we're ready to work. So I'm really excited about this year's meetings. It's going to be great.
In the long run, scores will improve. Academic achievement will improve, right?
Yes.
That's the goal.
Absolutely. That's what happens when you do all this stuff. It's the whole purpose. And then I just wanted to mention quickly the data presentation. I will be getting that together with the building administration, and we'll have that for next meeting. So we'll do that, all the data.
Any chance we could get that in advance of the meeting so we have some time to try to digest it?
Yep, I should have it to you when the agenda comes out.
Perfect.
Is that enough time?
Yeah, it gives us the weekend.
Gives us the weekend. Nothing
Data,
else to do.
Next meeting. Right up your alley.
Love it.
Right?
Right. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. Appreciate the update.
Yeah.
All right. Public minutes approval. We have the public minutes from August 6th, 2025. Everyone have a chance
to approve.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Shoemaker.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. DeWitt. Additional discussion on the minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I'm abstaining.
That carries 4-0-1. All right, and jumping into new business. Before we move into new business, one item that if the board is willing to add to new business that we forgot to talk about, but it came up in correspondence that triggered our memory, was a conversation on exchange students that I know some board members wanted to have. Can we do that at the end of new business?
You could do it at the beginning. You could do it at the end.
We're gonna
you
do it
could
at the
in
end.
middle.
We're gonna do it at the end. Okay, so we'll add exchange student discussion at the end of new business. All right, GMS project.
So we just want to provide an update. We're working through the contract. We don't have it finalized quite yet, but it is still coming. We do have a planning meeting that we're putting together for the team on August 28th at 3:30, even though Harriman's going to be there at 2:30 to watch dismissal, because that's part of all this fun and everything. So it worked out nicely. So we have our team from the district. We'll reach out to our FIC people to see who they want to join us. That'll be a business meeting to get the project kicked off and then start mapping out all the follow-up meetings with stakeholders, timelines, and everything that kind of goes along with it.
Dates are key.
Yep. Yeah, so that's going to be part of that, starting to establish all that. So that kickoff meeting is the 28th at 3:30 at GMS. So, and yeah,
I'm
we're working
trying
through the
to-
contract.
Sorry, I'm trying to clear my work schedule to see if to make sure that I can make it.
Yeah. And there'll be lots of these meetings, so obviously we want you there, but you know, like we're going
No,
to
I
can also build a remote capacity too.
yeah, I won't have remote capabilities for those meetings at work.
I could probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't have anything on my plan. I just need to make sure my boss is okay with it, that I leave and go from there. I think this first meeting is going to be critical to, as Mr. Cutter stated, is this sets the timeline for the rest of the project with them. And I'll say for whoever does attend, make sure we keep it on topic. I don't want this to, go down rabbit holes and squirrel to all of the possibilities of what could be and should be. We need to define the agenda, the timeline, and that needs to be the priority of the conversation.
I actually have that meeting on my calendar. I don't have anything else on that day, but if it can be remote, I definitely can be there. If it's going to be in person, I may have
we can put that.
may have
We'll
an
put
issue.
that place. Definitely. And then otherwise, we're working
Put that
with.
on my calendar too, just in case.
Yeah. What do you want, invites? We can send you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send it to the board, and then you all have it. You all are aware of it and know what's going on.
Thank you.
We're working with Harriman on that construction manager piece of it. So we're, again, sorry, there's not more on those updates, but that's the process that we're working on with it right now. So
Do we have a feel for, in terms of like what the turnaround would be to get an RF whatever out for the construction?
we
I
think
did relate to her that
yeah.
we wanted to move forward with that with their assistance, so they're also working on that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
That's all I had
Thank
for
you.
that.
Facilities.
So this, hold back up. Where'd it go?
Just say who wants to lead this one?
So this is the governance document that we talked about in the spring, sometime, April meeting, May meeting, whatever it is. It went back to the FIC. They walked through it, made some suggestions, and have proposed this as a governance document. I believe it was voted on by the FIC. There's no significant changes from what we talked about at the board level. So now it's back to the board for approval of this document that is how they're going to operate the FIC. So we would be looking for an approval of the governance documents. Part of this governance document is that the board is going to appoint members of the FIC. I would recommend doing that next meeting. We established the governance documents today. I mean, we know who the people are. We're expecting them to want to continue, but we should allow them to go. We should now follow the governance document that we're putting in place. And then maybe at the next board meeting, go through with that official appointment of people who are part of it and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and with that, we need to consider the staggering of the terms, just to make sure that my fear would be loss of knowledge if it's like a white ball, clean it out, and then come back. It does state 2-year staggered terms to make sure that we don't have that issue.
So at the next meeting, what I'd like to recommend is, willingness of the facilities committee members, right? And that's presented to the board with the terms of the individuals that they're willing to commit to.
Okay.
Right, and just lay it out in a document or a chart or something so we can see it. Makes sense.
Sounds good. Yep.
All right.
I would just like to make one comment. Brian, I don't know your understanding of this, but under the voting membership, citizen representatives, we have a provision for up to 9 total. I don't know how we word that to say that we can also deal with less.
Quorum,
Up to.
Right.
With the quorum voting?
No, just
Like the
having
establishment of it?
just having it. If we don't get 9 people that want to sit on it for a 2-year term,
All you have to do is add up to before 9.
yeah, so that would be the only change that I would have. But because we have for a quorum, we have it stated as 50% of voting members.
Mhm.
I'm just worried that we're gonna get caught in. We have 2
Yes.
vacant positions, and people are gonna, now people can just volunteer to do it, or revolving
I
membership.
think
or
in that
something
case,
like
we'd
that.
have to have somebody come to this board and ask for the position, and then they would be appointed to serve out the rest of somebody's term.
Okay.
If they were 1 year into their 2-year term, they would serve a year, then they would have to be reappointed.
Okay.
Right, which is, I think, what happens on the other boards, like budget. Right, Andrew?
Absolutely, yeah. Yep,
So you-
and the fact that, there are 9 individuals still interested in doing this is amazing to me, and really continuing to thank those individuals for their dedication and support.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that we're covered. That if we have less than that, then we're not going to run ourselves into a
Yeah,
situation.
particularly, hopefully, in the future, once, there's, solve GMS, you get a plan in place and, facilities is operating, interest might wane a little bit in this type of committee, So I think if you wanted to do that, if someone on the board wanted to make a motion to this document to add up to right there in that one language suggestion, it's in section 3, section A right there,
Just
up to 9 members. I think that would accomplish your goal.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole on this, but do we have to have a minimum number if you're trying to make?
Well, the quorum is 50% of the,
of voting membership.
I think what Matt's saying though is if we only have one.
Right.
one person.
Yeah, but if it comes, should there be a minimum
But
of 3?
well, and at
Or
one
it's
point,
5,
do you guys have a selectman's rep? now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I know at one point we didn't, so.
Mr. Brunel is now attending.
So I guess at the very worst, it would be 1 school board rep and 1 selectman rep.
And a budget committee rep, maybe.
Well, budget committee's non-voting per their own direction.
Yeah. Okay.
So
We could cross that bridge if it comes.
okay.
So
I mean-
I would make a motion to, in section A, number 3, change the language to up to 9 in total.
We have a motion by Mr. Plansky,
I'll second that.
second by Ms. Hames. Additional discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 5-0. And do we have a motion on the document itself?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. There's a motion,
Second.
second by Mr. Plansky. Additional discussion on the document motion?
Good
All
job.
right, all those in favor, please say aye.
I
Opposed, abstained, 5-0. Thank you very much.
like to thank the FIC for doing this. Theirs was primarily citizen representatives and other representatives' input to this, so they did a great job.
Okay, policies. Here we go.
Here we go.
There's a lot of them.
It is not that bad.
It looks daunting.
It
but
looks
it's really
daunting,
not.
but
So when
there's
you come
not.
back, bring a couple pizzas.
Do you want me to
Okay.
start? You want to start?
I can start. So the ED 306s were updated at the state level, which then has a trickle down effect on all of our policies that involve the ED 306s. So you're going to see a lot of small updates because we got to match the language in the 306s. So you're going to see that this is the first wave of these policies, and as time continues, you're going to see as we catch up to it all. These were the recommended first ones to get on right atop of. Of the policies here in this first section, and we kind of broke it down into 3 sections: things that needed to be immediate, things that were high priority, and things that were of moderate priority, just because of the importance and the timing of the school year that we're at. And those
Can I ask a really dumb question?
Yep.
What are 306s?
They're the kind of the governing laws connected to
Minimum
education.
education standards for the state of New Hampshire, what we're required by law to teach
Got it.
and offer.
So this first batch is the ones that need immediate attention because they're the most pressing as we enter into the school year right now. For the first 1, 2, 3, 4 on this list, there's 5 total in that immediate. The one I'm not including in what I'm about to say is the high school graduation requirements. So the first ones that deal with extended learning opportunities, alternative learning plans, instructional resources and instructional resources plan, the earning of credits. There's not significant changes to them. We're just aligning with New Hampshire School Board Association, which has updated their suggested policies with the changes from the 306s.
Given the pressing nature in your comment, do these need to be enacted in time for school start?
Yes and no. So like, let's take extended learning opportunities. Like, there's no significant change in the 306 that would prevent us, if a kid on the first day of school has to do an ELO, for us to carry through on the ELO, right? There's additional language related to like how an internship fits all in that, how the credit is that, some other parts with it that are kind of connected with what ELOs look like. But we would still be able to do ELOs on the first day of school, but we don't want to jeopardize. And like, there's an understanding that these just got updated and school is just starting, so we need to kind of get going on all of them. So,
And the laws.
We
are
won't
really-
have, like-
We have until, for a lot of things, we have until next school year to do full implementations of things. But the state put together a toolkit, and in that toolkit, they had the policies that were prioritized with like, you should do this right now, to, these can wait quite a while.
yeah.
So you're asking us to hold off on the IKF?
Well, I just wanted to talk about that one in a slightly different lens. So with the IKF, which is the high school graduation requirements, it's a hybrid of our current policy and the sample policy. The hybrid comes from, we have a higher number of graduation requirements. We require 24 for a kid to graduate from Campbell High School, where the state minimum is 20. So the sample policy does not expand upon districts that most districts go beyond the 20 credit minimum. So it includes the language that is relevant to our specific graduation requirements for Campbell High School. Things such as sophomore project, senior project, participation in advisory, that is in our current policy right there. So that's just different because we're not just lifting the suggested language and putting that in as our policy there.
Then there's a note to brackets describe special criteria or options, if any.
Which one are you on?
IKF.
Early graduation.
The proposed version.
Right. So with the early graduation, we come down to it. Later on in this is to rescind. It's recommended that we rescind the early graduation. So once we rescind that, that would then get deleted.
So do we have to approve the other one first?
We can just like, this is a suggested note from New Hampshire School Board Association to like do this. So like, it just is not going to be in the final version of the policy. It's just that if you want to put different stuff in there that was in a different policy at some point, you can come back and put it here. If you want, I can delete it like right now.
Oh, it doesn't
like
matter.
sit here. Like,
Eddie, you're the policy queen. Do you want
Make motions?
to?
Oh, sure.
Well,
I do
I
think
guess if there are questions first, I mean, I think the
there is
first
one
four.
on that particular one that we got to talk about. Yeah. So the suggested, this is on IKF there. The suggested credit requirement for full-time status is from the New Hampshire School Board Association is 3. We would have that at 4. That's what our current practice is. 4 is an important number. It's half of an 8-block day, which is what the high school schedule is based on. It also meets the NHIAA minimum requirement, so we cover that hurdle by just making our default as well. So we have a suggestion there to accept it with 4 as the minimum kind of credit requirement. And then there's other policies later on that would just change the 3 to 4 that go along with it.
The goal here was to align with the updated 306s, as well as NHSBA, does a great job of trying to make our jobs easier with providing us with the sample language. So the first 4 that are listed they aligned completely, and then the hybrid was because of our different.
Yeah, I don't have issues on the first four. On IKF, just a question, and more
Yeah.
for my awareness,
Yeah.
right? On sophomore and senior projects, is that? I know it's a common thing here in Litchfield, and I think they're great. But is it a common thing in other districts to do?
Their version of it, right? Like Bo
Okay.
had a senior project, right? Like Bedford, where my wife teaches, as a senior project, and something. There's your kid goes there.
Yeah.
Something sophomore year. I don't remember what it
There's
is.
something sophomore year. My daughter didn't have to do it, but they have like it's like what we do here. It's like a mini in preparation of what you would have to do for your senior project.
Yeah. So
It is very common practice amongst high schools.
now how they tackle it can be radically
Yeah.
different, right? Like some have it as a standalone class, some have it through their advisory program, some do it totally independent. Some of it's credit bearing, some of it's not.
Right.
So there's a ton of different variation on how that like senior project idea is accomplished, but more and more schools do it. It's that kind of coalition mindset from, Campbell opened when that was in vogue, and it's a good practice. I'm not criticizing it, but any school opened in that kind of time frame, put it in place. Your Souhegans, your Bows, your Campbells, Bedfords are all in that kind of window who do the same idea.
And it really aligns with there's the new like career readiness standards in the 306s. They really made them a little bit more robust, and it gives students the experience to kind of dabble in what they might be interested in and discover, am I really interested in this? Do I want to pursue a college degree in it? Or maybe I thought I was going to, but after doing this, maybe I don't want to. So it really broadens their horizons and their experience in high school.
Okay.
Now talk a little bit about graduation requirements, just as you'll see in here, there's 2 diplomas for Campbell. There's one that we have, and then one for students who are entering as freshmen, not this school year, but the following year. So entering into Campbell High School as freshmen in the 26-27 school year. The state requirements and how specific courses are broken down have been changed slightly. Nothing significant, right? Like, for example, there'll be a half credit of logic and rhetoric that will be a state requirement that's usually embedded in some sort of stats class or math class that, we probably already offer in some capacity. They break out U.S. history and New Hampshire history instead of letting them sit as one combined credit into 2 separate half credits. So while we will hopefully approve this policy at some point, as Sarah does work with the teams about their curriculum, as Val develops a program of studies in future years, we may or may not want to revisit our specific graduation requirements for high school as we kind of look at this. But these match the 306s.
A lot of work on it because obviously we have to have it ready to go for the incoming freshman class of 26.
Okay. Any questions on first read policies?
That's just the first
That's just
section.
That's just the first section.
That's the immediate updates. We still have high priority and moderate priority, and then
We'll take a
I should have
slight.
specified on the first handful of policies.
There you go.
I know it's a lot. We're slowing down a little bit after this.
Can we take them in batches, people?
That's what. Yes.
All right.
I agree. So if the board is comfortable, I'll make a motion to approve for a first read policy IHBH, policy IHBI, policy IJ, policy IK, and policy IKF.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ames. I will second additional discussion on those first read policies. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Those all carry 5-0.
Okay, high priority. Let's get the first one out of the way this time. This is class size. This district has a very specific class size policy that as a board you follow pretty religiously. So, when we talked about it in policy committee, we thought it was best to leave that policy alone. We don't believe we're in any violation of 306s or anything like that, but there's been a lot of work on that. There's a lot more detail in the policy here in Litchfield than you may see in other places and stuff like that, where you define it out where like this is a strive for number, this is a maximum number. So we didn't touch that particular policy at all. The other 3 there, the other 4 there follow the sample policies that were proposed by NHSBA. There is some and some not significant. We'll go through them one by one. Daily physical activity is pretty straightforward. Have daily physical activity, basic language updates. The IMBA has changed. When this policy first originated years and years ago, the idea of this was kids doing learning that they essentially they could send away for a class and get the information back. Like it was that true distance learning. It was before remote learning was really a thing. But as time has evolved, we kept trying, not just us, but a lot of districts kept jamming in the remote learning into this policy. Like how do you handle VLAX? How do you do it when you do a snow day? How do you do all this stuff? That's not really distance learning, and distance learning really isn't a thing anymore. So the policy's been updated with the 306 changes to reflect that it's really talking about remote learning now. So that is a significant change from what it was, but that's going to be universal for a lot of school districts who are just jamming in remote learning into that policy. Student conduct has not changed too much. It aligns with that same basic stuff that we had in place. And then that last one, JLCK, is a complete overhaul of that particular policy, where instead of just focusing on the physical needs of our special ed students, is talking about a broader approach to the physical and well-being of all of our students. And that is a change in the 306s to make that change and stuff like that. So it's not just us trying to rewrite these policies completely. That is what the 306s did, is to adjust them to better suit today's educational needs. Any questions on those?
And anything? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve for a first read policy IHB, IMAH, IMBA, JIC, and JLCK.
Motion by Ms. Ames. I will second for consistency. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? 5-0. We got moderates.
Yep. Last ones, these are not pressing for things such as summer activities. Summer activities, pretty straightforward, aligning with the sample language, not significant changes. Same with kind of homework. It simplified the language a little bit to meet the 306s. The high school credit for middle school classes, the only thing I want to make note of this for you all here is the suggested policy talks specifically about students in 7th and 8th grade, so that's what you see in front of you here. Our previous policy just talked about middle school, and obviously there are students 5 through 8 there. Our previous policy outlined the specific classes they could get credit for, right? It was Algebra 1 and it was Spanish. Where this, as written, and this is a good discussion point, would allow classes beyond exclusively Algebra and Spanish 1. For example, in theory, a kid could take a VLAX course that is a high school course and say physical science during their 8th grade year, and could possibly receive credit for that course if it meets certain requirements and stuff like that, right? That is something that is more in vogue, right, as time kind of goes on and stuff like that. And this policy would open up that as a possibility, right? And you're not so specific. Likewise, with this just being exclusive to 7th and 8th, if you had a kid in 6th grade who was capable of taking Algebra 1, right, and you have to make a determination if you're going to give credit for them doing Algebra 1 at that point, right? So there might need to be a waiver in place to say, yes, the 6th grader can take it. Different districts have different ways of approaching that specifically, right? If I've seen it really rarely, but once in a while you see a 6th grader taking Algebra 1, where they may not get credit for the Algebra 1 in 6th grade because of their age, but then they're getting Geometry and Algebra 2 credit because they're taking that in 7th and 8th grade as it's going on. You can do whatever you want, right? There are other districts that give that credit right away to the 6th grader because the level of work is matching what they're doing in the high school, and why wouldn't you give them credit? This is not pushing you in either direction, but it's not pushing you in either direction, right? So this is a little more open interpretation of middle school credits, and you might want to think about this more, you might not. There's no issues. We haven't had issues in this district, but you are changing that language in this particular policy.
So procedurally,
Yeah.
policy aside, procedurally, how will it work if the high school principal has open freedom to decide
what qualifies and what doesn't.
Yeah, so if you go back to that earning credit policy, there are guidelines in there that guide you on what would count
So
towards
should
high school
that be
credits.
referenced, cross-referenced in this policy?
We can make a note of that everything would need to be in line with policy IK, which is the earning of credit policy. Like we can add a note in there. Like I said, just because we're taking the suggested school board association language, it doesn't mean we can't change these as we see fit, right? And if we would feel more comfortable from a district perspective of saying, you know, any credit reward, you know, a blanket line kind of at the end, any credit rewarded, any high school credit rewarded must be in line with policy IK, earning of credit, right? That will kick you back to that policy, which talks about meeting high school standards and competencies, different places you can get credits, right, from like the Learn Everywhere place and ELOs and those type of things, and kicks you to then procedures and processes to do those type of things.
What I like about algebra and Spanish is it's defined.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's there's no guesswork.
Yeah.
Right? These are the classes that get you qualified
Yeah.
for high school credit.
Yeah.
Right? We're opening it up, which I don't mind, but I can also see risk with doing so.
Correct. What I've seen in other places is when you open it up, you're opening it up, right? Like you take that high school credit as a 8th grader, right? Like that physical science through VLAX, like that's mainly the most common way that a kid would access something outside of your class for high school, or outside of your district for high school credit, right? You're then, if you're putting that on your transcript, you're putting that on your transcript, right? Like if you're an 8th grader and you get a B+ in that course, that B+ lives on your transcript now, even though you took it as in 8th grade. You can't cherry pick when this class counts in your transcript and when it doesn't, unless there's something written in that allows you that kind of like flexibility, but you're really opening yourself up to do that, you know? So
there's risk there for the student.
There's risk there for the student, right? And then there's also, you could talk about whether you're taking a course for placement or for credit, right? Like some of the procedural language that some districts have is you make that determination. Like take math, for example. Like my students advance in math, they're going to take Algebra 1 in 6th grade, not for credit because they're 11, 12-year-olds when they're doing it. We feel they're truly gifted in this. We're going to take this course, but we're agreeing ahead of time that the credit's not going to go on the transcript so that they can't spin around and be like, oh, my kid ended up with an A+, put this on their transcript, right? Like, nope, we agreed at the offset. This is for placement so you could access a higher class down the road, right? And you just have to have the procedures that back that up to whatever you're going to do. But that's what we're departing from the policy here. If we follow the suggested language, is the current Litchfield policy connected to this is specifically Algebra 1 and Spanish. Those are the only courses that it falls to. And we can go back to that language. That's why we bring it up here to the board to kind of discuss. This is a moderate policy. If we want to kick this one back for some more exploration and like how this would work from a procedural standpoint, we can do that. This is not a make or break for us like right now as we start the school year next week. So
Well, let's turn it over to the board for a quick discussion.
I would like further discussion on this. As someone who growing up in a school system that didn't recognize, like you were placed in a track, right? And to get out of that track, it was an act of Congress. I mean, it took my dad and a lawyer to get me in certain subjects, to get into advanced classes because I was recognized in 7th grade. I was just bored out of my mind. And I was being disruptive because I was bored. So I would like to see that for other classes, not just strictly Algebra 1 and Spanish, but I would like to see how this would look for policies on how to protect ourselves and the student. My concern about doing it only for Algebra 1 and Spanish is you're going to get those gifted kids who are then not going to try in the other courses when they're potentially ready. I mean, I went to school for a kid that ended up like he passed College 1 physics in 7th grade. That's just how gifted he was. So I would like to see it opened up to give opportunity for kids who have that ability in other subjects than just the 2 that are listed.
I agree
That
with
is the
that.
benefit.
I agree with that as
Yeah.
well. I think you hear oftentimes that people feel that if their kid is gifted, it's hard to get access to other opportunities, and I
Yeah.
think if we can make that easier, especially if they can, if we are upfront about the fact, hey, here's the risk if you do this for credit versus for placement, then they know. Like you said, then they know they're agreeing to it.
And I'm in full agreement that if you're gonna take it for credit, it's gotta be against high school requirements for that credit. That's not middle school requirements for the credit.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go take a high school course, you're gonna be graded as a high school course.
And there are places where that's easier to establish than others. Like VLAX is legit, right? Like kids who are taking VLAX courses, maybe some of your kids have taken VLAX courses, they're legit curriculum, right? Like whether a kid's taking it in 8th grade or 9th grade, like if they're successful in that VLAX course, they've earned whatever they've gotten in that course, right? That'd be something more comfortable, but you may want to define where your comfort level is in awarding those, right? Like this random program, like over here, hey, my kid did, not to pick on Khan Academy, there's a role for it, but like, hey, my kid did physical science in Khan Academy. I don't think that would meet our requirements to earn credit and stuff like that.
I think we should be specifying that.
Yeah, you almost have to.
Yeah, so we can kick this one back and do some more work. And maybe it's us developing the procedural forms that go along it before we approve this policy, so we can have those two things kind of together. Like I said, this is a moderate of importance. It's suggested, but no needs to, we have to approve this. We have our current policy in place that fits for right now. We're offering algebra 1 in the middle schools, so we're good in that.
And I also like the tie back to earning of credits.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's kick this one. Let's keep it on the policy agenda for discussion. I don't want to lose sight of it.
Yes.
If the board's okay with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Did you want to speak on supervision of students? That was underneath that one.
Yeah. Let me refresh my memory. Put it up real quick.
This is
I
in
don't
line. This
think-
aligns with NHSBA.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything significant
Wasn't
different.
major change.
Right, yeah. Just updating where it needed to be updated. It's the same general language and everything like that. So yeah, there's nothing more. It's the same general language. You can go see the minor changes. So I don't know if in that section you want to take the other three and
So
maybe
that's what
move
I was
those.
gonna make a
Yeah.
motion to approve policy IHCA, IKB, and JLIA. God, my eyes are going. For approve, first read tonight.
Motion by Ms. Ames. I will second. Additional discussion on those three. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 5-0.
All right, policy IKFB will stay on the agenda and we will talk about it at our
Yeah.
next policy meeting.
When there's only one policy on the agenda. Got it.
Good luck.
Well, now you know it's the spider of all of them. You updated these ones. Now these ones have to be updated, right? So
Yeah.
All right.
these last two in this section are policies that are going to be that I would suggest you rescind them. You don't have to, but they're now embedded in other policies. For example, with the early graduation is now embedded as part of the high school graduation requirements. It's a section in there. On the second one, the alternative credit options, it's embedded, like how you receive alternative credit options and everything connected to it is now embedded in that earning credit policy IK. You can keep them if you want, but all the stuff is the same in those other policies.
I would say that we can make that motion to rescind, but we should do so after we've done second reads on the other policies because they're not
Alright.
final
Yeah.
yet.
Yep.
So they're still in place until we do the second reads.
Yeah. Sounds
If
good.
that makes sense. So
Yep.
again, those should stay on.
Okay. That's it for first reads. The second reads, we can do these in sections as well. That first group was the editing.
Let's just on second reads, in the interest of time, does the board have any questions on second read policies that we've already presented and reviewed? We can talk about the cell phone policy separately because that's put in there as well.
Yeah.
If you like.
Separately.
Okay. We'll talk about that one separately. Okay.
So I will make, if it's okay, I will make a
Yep.
motion to approve for a second read policy IHCB /LEB, policy EBB EBBC/JLCE, policy BGAA, policy AB, policy EBCH, procedure EBCH E1, and then policy IKFG.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ames. I will second. Additional discussion on those second read policies. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Those carry 5-0. Thank you. And if we want to go back to the rescind?
No, wait on
Oh,
those.
those ones are for the
For
first
next
readings. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we'll rescind next time.
gotcha. Okay, so now on to cell phone policy second read. So I know we've had quite a bit of discussion on cell phone policy this evening. My opinion is aligned with Mr. DeWitt from earlier tonight. Approve the policy, arm the staff with the policy, and certainly open it up for community input, forum, discussion at a upcoming meeting. If October, is it October 1st?
Yep.
At October 1st, that works.
I can vote. I can vote accordingly. For my opinion, I think that
I'm interested in your opinion.
I think that we do have a policy in place right now. I think that whether or not it's being adhered to is
We don't have a policy.
we don't have a policy on
Do not have an unauthorized. You do not have a policy
Not until this is
JICJ.
approved.
we don't have any policy relating to
The only thing you
Cell
have is
phone usage.
acceptable use, internet acceptable use. But this is a recommended policy in general
regardless.
that
Fair.
you do not have on the books. You don't have to, but
Right.
you don't have
Right.
anything.
We have. I'm sorry. So
You have
so
procedures.
it's in our handbook.
It's in our handbooks.
Okay.
Yes.
My synchron. We have. What would you call them if they're in hand? It's not a policy.
Procedures.
Procedure. Okay. We have procedures in our handbook that handle this. I think that the statute is clear that this shall be developed in collaboration with school parents, and it has not been. So I don't think we should be enacting a policy that we're not complying with the statute.
Mr. Plansky?
I will make a motion to approve policy JICJ.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Plansky.
I will second.
All right, Mr. DeWitt will second. Additional discussion on this one?
I don't struggle with the policy. The policy's fine with me. It's the practice and procedures that I'm concerned with. But again, that to me isn't necessarily what I'm voting on right here. This to me is the second read of a policy that says put it away. So I am very comfortable with that language. My concerns are about the procedures. However, I think it makes sense to school starts on Monday. We don't have time to do anything different. So I think starting where we are with that the practice in place under the handbooks is what we're doing. But I don't know that that's the conversation that's before us in terms of the actual policy.
That's not the conversation at the moment.
Right. So in terms of the actual policy that's here, which says put it away, I'm absolutely in favor of.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hi.
Abstained. That carries 4-1-0. And for those that are watching and paying attention, upcoming forum, community forum on cell phones, we want to hear from you on this topic. October 1st. Right? Yep. All right. Thank you for that.
May I jump in for a moment? On a totally different subject. You had mentioned you want to add a new business, exchange students,
Yes, that is next.
and I didn't want you to forget. So.
Thank you. I had it written down.
It's gonna be short. You got 6 minutes till 8 o'clock.
It should be fairly short, yes.
I think it's 8 minutes.
So on new business, we did add exchange student discussion on this one. Mr. Plansky, you want to get it kicked off?
Sure, there was a, we authorized an exchange student a few meetings ago.
Yeah.
The woman who I don't think she runs the organization, but she placed the student, approached one of the pages in town about advertising. They have sort of a strict policy on advertising on their page. It's like you need to have live in town or have a business in town. They would not let her do that. And then it became very confrontational between one of the administrators of the page and this person. I'm not privy to all the details what was said, but this woman was very aggressive, was sort of stalking them on their page along with another administrator of the page, or whatever they call you on the page, and really came very close to calling this person a racist if they didn't allow her to post on the page, on a local page that the school board has no control over.
So I think the discussion amongst the board tonight is the exchange student discussion and the from the town perspective, if we would allow promotion once a month of exchange students through the town website is what the ask is.
Through the town website or the school district website?
Through the town website. They want to market through the town website, and the town will allow it once a month per their own policies, but they didn't want to allow it without the school.
Well, the page is not a town page, it's a private page.
It's a private page, right?
So we have no control over that.
Which is,
We have no control over that, but they wanted to run it by us and make sure we're okay with it before they allow this woman who is, I don't know if she's a part of our community or not.
she's not part of the Litchfield community, but she works for the company that places the students. And again, I don't think this board is in a position to tell that page what they can and cannot do. And honestly, based on what I've heard was back and forth and the way she behaved with the administrator, I would not recommend allowing her to post on the page. But I have no control over
We
that
have no
page. So.
control over that. I think we have a policy for
Exchange students.
exchange students, right?
We do. It talks more about visas and all that type of thing. If I may jump in, I've had extensive just battles with exchange organizations. I appreciate the value the individual exchange students bring to school districts and the experience for both the hosts and the students coming and stuff like that. I have found it challenging to work with these exchange groups. They can get very aggressive in their approaches and stuff like that. And I would be cautious if you crack the door, they're going to push it open. If people are interested in exchange students, there's plenty of ways to access that information, right? Whether it's through Google searches, through anything like that. I would not get in the business of promoting or not promoting exchange students. We allow exchange students. If there's applications, we will entertain them. That's it, right? And they come to us as they come to us, right? But speaking from experience, I've certainly had I've been in situations, not with this individual. I don't know this individual that is involved with EF here, the organization. But I've in the past felt trapped by exchange organizations, like as a building administrator. So, and it's nothing against the students. It's nothing against families who host kids. It's nothing against that. But just like I feel sometimes these agencies, because they profit if they can place a kid with a host family, that they can be very challenging to work with. So I would proceed with serious caution of whatever recommendation the board has.
I agree, right?
I don't think we need to take any action.
I don't think we
on
need to
this.
take any action. I think it's more board awareness at this point, right? And I think we have a policy on this. If somebody applies, they apply. That's great, fantastic.
So just, I guess, proactively, this is being asked about a private website. If they were to ask us about the district website, the answer would be no.
Correct.
And well, but it's also the town wants our input as to if the town would advertise about this on their
No.
No.
It's not the town.
It's not the
a
town
private
page.
page.
It's a private page.
Well, that's where they asked,
Mhm.
but you're saying that the town said that they would advertise once per month on their website.
No.
That's the private page.
That's the
Asked.
private page.
Oh,
Andrew, it was a misspoke or
okay.
it's not.
Okay,
It was not the town page. you were
so
talking
the
about.
page
The private
It's
administrators,
a private page.
yeah, the page administrators offered to do it once a month.
But we're looking for guidance from the school board.
Yeah,
But
no,
I
it's a
don't
private
agree with
page. We have no say.
It is the private page.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure it wasn't that. Okay.
All right.
All right. That closes that one. The time is now, we'll call it 8 o'clock. We'll open it up for the second round of community input this evening. Everyone is running up to the mic tonight. All right, we'll close community input and we'll move it into old business. The old business for the board? All right, we'll close old business and move right into manifest this evening. I just opened it, but let me open it again. So in terms of manifest, we have payroll for $101,658.81. We have the 403B for $2,442.49. We have a credit card manifest for $4,428.67. And we have two accounts payable manifests, $279,497.43. And the second one was for $113,090.42. And that concludes the manifests for this evening. School board comments.
My only comment is I am going to start in the non-public session, but for public awareness, I am going to leave pretty quickly. It is my last night with my high school graduate who leaves for UNH tomorrow, and I've already gotten about 30 "Mom, where's this text?" So we have some last minute packing to do, and I have more crying to do, and so I'll stay for the beginning just to hear any major issues, but otherwise I am going to leave early to go enjoy her last night.
That's a big deal. Yeah. All right.
Good luck with the move.
Thank you.
I would say the only
please.
Sorry. The only comments that I have is the cell phone, personal electronic stuff, to not rehash it. In my professional world, I see it being a massive issue. I mean, we all have our phones right here on the desk, right? It's every time it buzzes, it's like it's instinct which one's looking at their phones. My company pushes technology and communication via technology hardcore, but yet I found myself in the habit of I'm in an office and the guy's sitting 6 feet away and I'm IMing him a question versus both of our office doors are open. Hey, what are you doing over there? Got a question, right? It's people don't walk down the halls anymore. They don't show up to meetings. They'll take the meeting from their desk if they can call in. I see it even in the professional world, extensive social, economic issues that arise from people just not being face to face, not being able to read the room or the expressions or anything else with that can come with you're separated by a screen or text or something. So I think, maybe the procedures are strict to start and they back off, which is what we discussed in the long run. But I wish I could do this for my meetings at work. I wish I could say, leave your laptops out, leave your cell phones away. You're in this meeting. This is what you're dedicating your time to. I think, honestly, a lot more business would get done a lot faster.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the fact that I don't think that kids should be on their cell phones.
No,
I want to be clear about this. And I also want to be clear that this, for people that happen to listen and think that I'm like strongly advocating for that, don't be mistaken, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, the reason why this is in front of us is because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you were, we wouldn't have this in front of us. And then I guess the last thing that I'll just reiterate is, it's one thing for these kids who think that it's smart to post on social media. All your administrators have now seen that you're planning to come with a fake phone. So that was not a good look. But for parents that are encouraging their kids to break the rules, that's also problematic, right? We need to get back to there being a good, solid partnership between parents and our teachers and our administrators. And we need you to assist in that. We can't have people who are saying, well, it's okay, my kid can do this. That's problematic. That's not the way the world works either. So.
And I wasn't trying to poke at you for what
I didn't think you were, but
yeah,
okay. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Because I agree with you, is that it says that we should have done this, so we're making a provision of we're going to go do it. So. All right.
Thank you for that. Okay. The board does have non-public business this evening under RSA 91A3 A and C. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Shoemaker,
Second.
second by Mr. DeWitt. We'll do a
was
roll
louder.
call vote. Mr. Plansky,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Ms. Ames.
Aye.
Mr. DeWitt.
Aye.
That carries 5-0. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate everyone's attendance tonight and participation. And that concludes our public session tonight.